Chapter 1547. Su Yu saw the figure and shook his head helplessly. He did not want to bother with such a small fry and had intended to spare his life. Who would have thought that he would seek his own death? Clang! He smashed into the eaves, destroying a house on the spot. Countless dust swept towards Su Yu, but when it came within 1,000 feet of him, it automatically separated. A figure with a hideous smile walked out from the dust. You know what? I like people like you the most. You overestimate yourself and like to think you're smart. Do you think that just because you're good at body techniques you can touch the taboo that you can't? What I like most is to see you in the field that you're best at, to see your face full of despair. Su Yu crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at the figure with a hideous smile. He was amused. Well, why don't you tell me what field you're good at? Su Yu said. Nitian Sha laughed. What a joke. As a member of the heaven-defying faction, I'm naturally best at the way of defying intentions. However, against people like you, I don't need to use this way at all. I'll just use the field that you're best at. Body technique. Swoosh. Nitian Sha attacked again, bringing with him the remaining power of the Cosmos reversal technique. In an instant, he teleported to Su Yu's left and right and fiercely struck his chest. Bang! A feeling of substance came, and it was definitely not a shadow. Nitian Sha's lips curled into a hideous smile. This time, he was doomed. However, what shocked him was that Su Yu's gaze was actually looking at him at that very moment. It was as if Su Yu had already seen his trajectory. Illusion. Nitian Sha thought to himself. However, the next moment, his heart seemed to have missed a beat, because there was a hint of helplessness in Su Yu's eyes. Thump! He had a very bad feeling. Could it be that the other party's body technique was above his? The thought only appeared for a moment before it was cast aside. As a member of the heaven-defying faction, his strongest belief was himself, and he would never admit that he was inferior to others. Die! Nitian Sha's fist power did not diminish. Instead, it increased and a destructive blow erupted. A muffled sound was heard. It was the sound of his fist about to pierce through Su Yu's chest. Years of experience told Nitian Sha that in the next breath, Su Yu would become a pile of minced meat on the ground. However, when the next breath arrived, Nitian Sha discovered that the distance between his arm and Su Yu's chest was shrinking. Normally, it was because his arm had passed through Su Yu's chest. But why was there a slight pain coming from his arm? No, it's not light, it's gradually getting worse. Also, shouldn't the divine blood that splashed out belong to Su Yu? Why did it contain the defying will of the heaven-defying lineage? Finally, the intense pain stimulated Defiant Sha to come to his senses. The distance between them continued to shorten. It was not that Su Yu's chest had been penetrated, but his arm had been shattered inch by inch. By the time he realized it, the terrifying power of his punch, which had been aimed at Su Yu, had finally rebounded. Bang! With a loud explosion and a miserable howl, Against the Sky Demon was blown away by his own terrible fist momentum. His whole body festered and almost became a skeleton with no flesh left. A corporeal soul flew out from the skeleton and looked at Su Yu in shock. At this moment, Su Yu was safe and sound, and his clothes were not even creased. It was as if the terrible blow just now was like a mosquito bite, unable to cause the slightest harm. Who are you? Against the Sky Demon's soul panicked, from the depths of his heart. It was too terrifying. Standing still, the rebound force alone could destroy the body of a level 3 deity. He had seen the magical power of rebound, and was certain that Su Yu's was not similar to a divine technique, but a rebound force that relied on the hardness of his body. How hard must a person's body be to completely rebound the attack of a level 3 deity and kill him? Anyway, the Emperor of the Empire could not do it. If Nitian Sha had not used a secret technique to protect his soul at the critical moment just now, his body and soul would have been destroyed by now. Su Yu raised his eyes and looked at him indifferently. Who I am is not important. What's important is that I gave you several chances to live, but you just had to chase after me to your death. Nitian Shah shuddered, and with a look of horror in his eyes, he hurriedly said, If you kill me, Nitian Hanxing will not forgive you. Everyone knew how terrifying Nitian Hanxing was. Unexpectedly, Su Yu said indifferently, Nitian Hanxing? He was defeated by me, why should I be afraid of him? What? Nitian Shah was taken aback, and then suddenly remembered something. His whole body trembled uncontrollably, and his eyes bulged, showing the extreme fear in his heart. His lips trembled. Your surname is Su, could you be Su? You know a little too much, Su Yu said indifferently, and a mass of red light shot out from his left eye. Nitian Shah's soul body was immediately destroyed into dust, disappearing from the world. Swish, swish, swish. The Dragon Elephant King, the Ice and Fire Divine Soldiers, Taiqing Yunhui, and Taiqing Wonderful Jade had just arrived. They only heard Nitian Shah's last words before he was obliterated by a mass of space energy. The Ice and Fire Divine Soldiers stared at the scattered body of Nitian Shah on the ground in shock. Their pupils shrank, and they looked at Su Yu with deep fear. The leading figure of the younger generation was actually dead. Taiqing Yunhui's ethereal eyes flickered with emotion. She stared at Su Yu's figure, full of vigilance. Only the Dragon Elephant King secretly revealed a comfortable smile. He thought to himself, haha, he really came all the way here to die. Nitian Shah does have the capital to be arrogant, but in front of this ancestor-level almighty, he doesn't even have the right to make a sound. Taiqing Miaoyu blinked. Her cultivation was the lowest, and her vision and hearing were inferior to the three of them. She had no idea what had happened. She only saw a pile of bodies beside Su Yu, all of which belonged to Nitian Shah. Ah, Nitian Shah, he is dead? Taiqing Miaoyu's almond-shaped eyes widened, and her mouth opened so wide that an egg could almost be stuffed inside. Who did this? No one answered, because the other three people present were all shocked and did not dare to move at will, lest some of their actions be misunderstood by the mysterious man. They did not think they were better than Nitian Shah. How powerful was that Nitian Shah? In the end, in just a few breaths of their pursuit, he died without a burial place. The horror of the mysterious man left them with lingering fear. No one responded. Taiqing Miaoyu flew over to Su Yu and patted him on the shoulder. She looked around in fear. Hey, did you see who did this? He actually killed Nitian Shah? The scene made the eyelids of the three of them twitch. Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. Taiqing Yunhui wanted to stop them, but she did not dare to act rashly. She could only wait and see. Unexpectedly, the scene of Su Yu's anger did not appear. Instead, he said with a faint smile, who knows? Maybe he was too arrogant and inadvertently provoked a passing strong man? As he spoke, he glanced at the Dragon Elephant King and the other two. To their horror, this glance caused their souls to tremble, like candlelight in the wind, about to be extinguished in an instant. It really shocked them. Wasn't such a look too terrifying? Even when facing a monarch, they had never felt such a thing. This person. Who was this person? No matter how muddle-headed the divine soldiers of Ice and Fire and Taiqing Yunhui were, they finally understood that the mysterious man who had concealed his aura was by no means a young hero of their generation, but an old monster who hid his strength well. He was the kind of ruthless character who could make the continent tremble with a stomp of his foot. They understood the meaning of Su Yu's glance and kept quiet, not daring to speak about what they had just seen, lest Su Yu kill them. Only Taiqing Miaoyu did not notice at all. She stroked her chin very seriously and said, "A passing strong man? It is really possible. The four great monarchs have gathered, and the Taichu Empire has many elusive big shots. Among them, there are many level 3 deities of the older generation who can kill Nitian Shah." The Dragon Elephant King broke out in a cold sweat. "Little lady, you really believe it? With the answer, Taiching Miaoyu did not pursue the matter any further. She looked at Nitian Sha's corpse and snorted. Who asked you to take liberties with me? You deserve to be killed. The wicked will be punished by the heavens. Taiching Miaoyu heaved a long sigh of relief. That Nitian Sha had been coveting her for more than a day or two. Looking at Taiching Yunhui in the distance, who had not come over yet, Taiching Miaoyu thought for a moment, pulled Su Yu's sleeves, and flew towards Taiching Yunhui. Taiching Yunhui looked as if she was facing a formidable enemy. Divine energy surged under her feet, and her sleeves fluttered even though there was no wind. Her ethereal eyes were replaced by vigilance and awe. Her whole body was stiff, and she tensed up, ready to escape at any time, even though it was useless to escape. What's wrong with you, Uncle Master? Why is there a cold sweat on your forehead? Taiching Miaoyu flew closer and immediately noticed Taiching Yunhui's strange behavior. Taiching Yunhui stared at Su Yu, her eyes flickering. She said, Oh, you must be tired from the long-distance chase, right? Is that so? Then why is your chest soaked? Taiching Miaoyu was like a curious baby, asking all kinds of questions. The divine soldier of ice and fire was even more nervous and he stuttered, It's too hot, yes, it's too hot. Taiching Miaoyu was startled, and she muttered suspiciously, A level 3 deity is afraid of the heat? She looked at the dragon elephant king and found that there was nothing wrong with him. She said strangely, It's really strange, one is sweating from the heat and the other is sweating from exhaustion. Why are you fine even though you are traveling together? The dragon elephant king wanted to vomit blood. Aren't you putting me on the grill? With a hollow laugh, the dragon elephant king immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and said, I'm not sweating, but I'm bleeding. This weather is really not suitable for a long journey. The divine soldier of ice and fire and Taiching Yunhui looked at him from the corner of their eyes, secretly looking at him with admiration. He was really ruthless, causing internal injuries and vomiting blood. Taiching Miaoyu was dumbfounded. A level 3 deity, who was high and mighty, had traveled a distance of 1 billion miles, and yet he was so tired that he vomited blood? She was a little confused, and tugged at Su Yu's sleeve. Hey, you've also traveled 1 billion miles, why are they so tired, but you're fine? Su Yu looked at the three of them with dissatisfaction. Their excuses were too lousy. I'm probably full and have the energy to run, Su Yu said. Chapter 1548. Taiching Miaoyu was dumbfounded, feeling as if her worldview had been turned upside down. It turned out that even a level 3 deity would be sweating or vomiting blood from exhaustion if he didn't have a full meal. Whoosh, whoosh. Fortunately, at that moment several figures rushed over. Among them were Ice and Fire Scripture and Nitian Lingshan. They had used the long-distance teleportation treasure passed down by the royal family to arrive a little later. When they saw Nitian Sha's corpse, the two were horrified. Who did it? They asked in unison, their breaths frozen. Taiching Miaoyu said proudly, You came too late and didn't see it. I saw it with my own eyes. A great senior who appeared and disappeared mysteriously killed him with one palm. Su Yu was speechless. How did the rumor come about? That was how it came about. Then, Ice and Fire Scripture and Nitian Lingshan listened to Taiching Miaoyu's bragging and nodded in amazement. After listening, Ice and Fire Scripture patted Su Yu's shoulder. Brother Su is really lucky to have met a great senior passing by. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Nitian Lingshan was also filled with emotions. Brother Su is indeed a blessed man. To think that such a legendary event would happen to Brother Su. One who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune later on. Taiching Miaoyu laughed heartily and pulled Su Yu towards Taiching Yunhui. She was so frightened that her nerves tensed up again, and her breathing quickened. Martial uncle, please listen to his request on account of the fact that he has helped us before. Taiching Miaoyu said sincerely. Taiching Yunhui's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. She had the urge to punish her severely. Wasn't this causing trouble for her? In the face of such an old monster, would she dare to say no? This former young master, may I ask what kind of divine technique you would like to exchange? Taiching Yunhui forced herself to calm down and asked. Suyu was surprised. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. If it was that simple, it would naturally be better. He immediately said, I want your royal family's technique to control the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole. Taiching Miaoyu and Taiching Yunhui were both surprised. Taiching Yunhui stopped speaking in time, her eyes filled with surprise. Taiching Miaoyu said in surprise, Strange, why do you want this thing? Everyone in the God realm knows that the Taiching royal family's yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole have been lost for billions of years, right? Now that it has already become someone else's, what's the use of this technique? Suyu was delighted. This meant that the cultivation technique really existed. May I ask Miss Yunhui if you're willing to part with it? I have a demonic path divine technique to gift to you. It's very powerful, and it's not inferior to the third-ranked divine technique of the heaven-defying empire. Suyu took out a copy of the 6 Paths of Natural Relationships that he had already inscribed. The Taiching Wonder Jade was extremely envious at the side, and she said, Martial uncle, I've witnessed it with my own 2 eyes. Its might is extremely formidable indeed, and it just happens to be able to make up for the flaw of our Grand Clear Imperial family's divine arts attack being insufficient. Taiching Yunhui cried bitterly in her heart. She was instinctively against exchanging any inherited divine art. Therefore, the exchange gathering on the first floor ended on a bad note. However, facing Suyu, how could she dare to resist? Even Ni Tian Sha, who was protected by Nitian Hanxing, would be killed without hesitation, let alone her? Since young Master Su is sincere, I won't refuse. Taiching Yunhui took out a droplet of blood that contained yin and yang energies. The method to control the Taiji yin-yang wings is in this droplet of blood. She really wanted to ask Suyu about the use of this technique, but she was afraid of revealing the secrets of the heavens and provoking a fatal disaster. Suyu was pleased. He had finally gotten what he wanted. After exchanging, Suyu immediately put it away. He was going to meet the Mermaid Emperor before slowly refining the technique in the droplet of blood. Congratulations, Brother Su! Ice and Fire Jing Huan and Nitian Lingshan congratulated him together. Taiching Miaoyu hammered Suyu's chest, raised her sharp chin and said, How are you going to thank me? Uncle Master only agreed to the exchange because of me. I am now your great benefactor. Hearing this, Taiching Yunhui's forehead throbbed with worry and amusement. She was only doing this because she was afraid of Suyu. Suyu smiled. Then how do you want me to repay your kindness? Beside him, Ice and Fire Jing Huan said mockingly, Young Master Su, why don't you devote your life to me? Your strength is extraordinary, and you are a good match for Miaoyu. Taiching Miaoyu raised her eyebrows and said, Who wants him to devote his life to me? Ice and Fire Jing Huan said mischievously, Oh? What if it's your great hero, Suyu? Then do you want it? Taiching Miaoyu blushed and bared her teeth. Jing Huan, your skin is itching again, isn't it? It is. If Suyu were to devote his life to me, you would be more than happy to. Shut up. But at this moment, Taiching Yunhui softly scolded, her face displeased. Don't talk nonsense. Is Senior Su someone you juniors can mess with? Ice and Fire Jing Huan shrank his neck and muttered to himself, Why are you throwing a tantrum? Isn't it just jealousy? Who doesn't know about Senior Su? Taiching Miaoyu stuck out her tongue and snorted discontentedly in her heart. Humph! Only state officials are allowed to set fires, but the common people are not allowed to light lamps. Only you are allowed to like Suyu. It turned out that the princess of the Taiching royal family was kidnapped by Nitian Hanxing, which caused a great uproar. Later, the Taiching royal family endured the humiliation and signed a settlement agreement. This incident became a historical humiliation for the Taiqing royal family. As the second princess at that time, Taiqing Yunhui put down a knot in her heart. She once mobilized a group of strong men in the empire, promising to marry whoever killed or seriously injured Nitian Hanxing. Unfortunately, at that time, the Taiqing Empire was suppressing them and forbidding them from taking revenge. Nitian Hanxing's strength was outstanding, and he was protected by strong men whenever he went out. No one succeeded. Many years had passed, and she had almost forgotten about it herself. Who knew that a few years ago, a young man named Su Yu would appear out of nowhere and advance triumphantly? He seriously injured Nitian Hanxing twice and killed his protector, Nitian Gun. Someone brought up Taiqing Yunhui's promise, and she had to announce to the world that she was willing to keep her promise and marry Su Yu. Now that the juniors were teasing Su Yu, she naturally could not tolerate it. As for the jealousy in their hearts, Taiqing Yunhui was helpless. She had not even seen his face, so how could she like him? However, if a legendary figure like Su Yu took a fancy to her and was willing to marry her, she would be very happy. Unfortunately, he had disappeared without a trace for several years. How could he be interested in a nobody like her? Sighing silently, Taiqing Yunhui warned, "I'll warn you one last time, don't make inappropriate jokes." Taiqing Miaoyu was scolded and asked Su Yu with dissatisfaction, "You want to repay a debt of gratitude, don't you? Let's go, treat me to a meal." The Ice and Fire Warlock and Nitian Lingshan also readily agreed. "All right then," Su Yu said helplessly. The spell was already in his hands, so there was no need to wait here in a hurry. The Dragon Elephant King's face was full of smiles. "Mr. Su, if you don't mind, how about returning to the Heavenly Immortal Tower?" Su Yu nodded and said to Taiqing Miaoyu and the others, "Let's go, I'll take you back." When he finished speaking, he rolled up his sleeves and took the three of them away. They disappeared in an instant, leaving behind a strong yin and yang energy. Taiqing Yunhui was shocked. This is the yin-yang shuttle technique of the Taiqing Empire? Did he cultivate some kind of inherited movement technique of ours? There was a lot of surprise on her pretty face. "Lady Taiqing, what should we do?" the Ice and Fire Warlock asked anxiously. Taiqing Yunhui came back to her senses and thought for a long time. This senior does not seem to be an evil person. He is quite kind to Miaoyu and the others, so he probably won't harm them. We don't have to worry too much, but it's better to report this matter to the respective emperors as soon as possible. "I think so too. Let's go, there's no time to lose," the Ice and Fire Warlock said. The two flew together to the Mermaid Emperor's palace, and the Dragon Elephant King returned to the Heavenly Immortal Tower to serve Su Yu and the others. In the Mermaid Emperor's palace, the four God Realm Supremes gathered together. However, the atmosphere was slightly cold and seemed to have fallen into some kind of stalemate. The Ice and Fire Warlock and Taiqing Yunhuan were a little angry, and from time to time, they glanced at a young man sitting cross-legged in a shadowy corner. The young man's skin was dark, and his whole body was full of overbearing and fierce reverse will, like a demonic sword, exceptionally dangerous. He said in an indisputable tone, "There is no need for further discussion. No one can change what I, Nitian Hanxing, have decided. As I said, I will control the Brahma puppet, so I will control it. If you don't agree, humph, all of you get lost." They were all of the same generation, and yet they were reprimanded in front of their faces. How insulting was that? The strange thing was that they chose to swallow their anger, and did not even say a word of rebuttal. The two of them looked at the Mermaid Emperor, meaning to let the Mermaid Emperor decide. After all, the Brahma puppet belonged to the Mermaid Emperor. The Mermaid Emperor pondered for a moment and said, "The Brahma puppet is still being forged, and it is still too early to decide who it belongs to. I don't care." Nitian Hanxing interrupted with an arrogant look. "The Brahma puppet must be handed over to me for safekeeping." The Mermaid Emperor frowned slightly. He clearly felt that the reverse will in Nitian Hanxing was getting stronger, just because he did not meet his unreasonable demands. The Brahma puppet was the result of 10 years of hard work by the Mermaid Emperor. He had spent most of the resources left behind by him when he was the World Annihilator Emperor before he was barely close to completion. As a result, Nitian Hanxing did not say anything and directly asked for it. His attitude was overbearing and unreasonable. However, he knew the horror of the reverse demon and could not refute it too fiercely. Otherwise, he would be forced to become the reverse demon, and the loss would outweigh the gain. He regretted inviting Nitian Hanxing to participate. However, if he did not invite him, it would be unrealistic to unify the entire god realm and obtain the essence and blood of all living creatures. After thinking for a long time, the Mermaid Emperor chose to give in. Well, the Brahma puppet is yours. No. Binghua Sangxing and Tai Qin Yunluan dissuaded him. Although they were uneasy about the Mermaid Emperor's control, they could still tolerate it. But Nitian Hanxing, he was a madman. No one knew what Nitian Hanxing would do with the Brahma puppet. Get lost. Who do you think you are to stop me? Nitian Hanxing's eyes shot out 2 rays of light, containing a monstrous reverse will. Binghua Sangxing and Tai Qin Yunluan were both angry and moved to resolve the reverse will gaze. However, even with the gaze, the two of them spent 10 to 20% of their strength to succeed. Chapter 1549. A gaze was already so powerful. If Nitian Hanxing were to take action, wouldn't he be on par with them with just 10% of his strength? The Mermaid Emperor's eyes flashed and he was secretly awestruck. He is going deeper and deeper into the path of the anti-demon. Before we deal with the sinful lady, we must not aggravate him into becoming an anti-demon, otherwise, it will become a big problem. You two don't have to be like this. Now that the catastrophe is upon us, it doesn't matter who controls the heaven-burning puppet. You must know that we are bound together for good or ill, the Mermaid Emperor advised, trying to ease the tension between them. The most important thing was not to let Nitian Hanxing's anti-will increase again. Nitian Hanxing glared at the two of them contemptuously and ordered the Mermaid Emperor, "Give it to me." The Mermaid Emperor was not annoyed and took out a cavern world. It was very old and looked like a walnut riddled with holes on the outside, but the inside was a different world. There were many weapons of the ancient civilization that had never appeared in the world, as well as many extinct ancient materials, ancient formations, and ancient spirits. In the center of the cavern world, there was a huge puppet standing between heaven and earth. It looked exactly the same as the heaven-burning puppet that was being built in Su Yu's sacred sky ship. This thing was the first world created by the World Annihilation Emperor when he became a god, and it had always been hidden in his soul. When he died, part of his soul was attached to this cavern world. Relying on the residual breath of the Emperor inside, he avoided the fate of becoming a tomb guard spirit and awakened from his muddle-headedness. This thing was irreplaceable to him. Haha, good stuff. I want this cavern world too. However, Nitian Hanxing took a fancy to this thing and did not take the Mermaid Emperor seriously at all. He did not look at the Mermaid Emperor's slightly gloomy face. His soul power swept directly inside, and when it fell on the huge heaven-burning puppet, he was slightly surprised. Huh? That puppet looks familiar. I seem to have heard Nitian Guyan mention it before. The father and son of the heaven-defying clan hated each other. The sacred sky ship was completely controlled by Nitian Guyan, and Nitian Hanxing knew nothing about what was inside. There was even a half-finished Brahma heaven puppet that he didn't know about. But it doesn't matter, from now on it belongs to me. Nitian Hanxing opened his mouth and swallowed, hiding the walnut cavern world into his stomach. Only then did he reveal an elated expression. Haha, everyone, let's work together to resist the prophecy in the royal sacred gate. Tai Qin Yunhui was indignant and snorted. Nitian Hanxing noticed her. At this moment, his thoughts were clear and he was in a good mood. He could not help but look at Tai Qin Yunluan. As the only female ruler of the dynasty, not only did she have unparalleled abilities, but she was also extremely beautiful. In the past, Nitian Guyun had set his eyes on her more than once. Unfortunately, although he was strong, he was not strong enough to suppress this woman. Now, Nitian Hanxing's strength was far stronger than his father's by several times. Without any effort, he could suppress this woman and make her unable to move. He could not help but have charming thoughts in his heart. He looked at Tai Qin Yunluan's attractive figure and did not hide his inner thoughts. Yunluan, with your beauty, it's really a pity that you don't enter my palace. Why don't I issue an imperial edict to unite our two dynasties by marriage? So naked? Such undisguised, shameless words actually came out of his mouth in such a dignified manner. Binghua Cangxing was angry. Not to mention the political impact of the marriage between the two dynasties, he could not tolerate Nitian Hanxing's arrogance. He slammed the table angrily. Nitian Hanxing, you better stop before going too far. Nitian Hanxing looked at him from the corner of his eye. His eyes were cold and murderous, and the surface of his body was rolling. Why, do you want to fight me? Being stared at, Binghua Cangxing's confidence immediately weakened. His tone was slightly relaxed, and he changed his words. What I mean is, in the face of a great enemy, we should put aside our personal affairs for the time being. It's not too late to talk about it after the catastrophe is resolved. Mermaid Emperor came to the rescue. I think so too. If you are interested, you can talk about it after the catastrophe. In this way, Nitian Hanxing was not irritated. He looked at Tai Qin Yunluan's plump body with nostalgia and laughed. Good. Then it's settled. After the evil girl is dealt with, I will accept Tai Qin Yunluan into my palace. I, Nitian Hanxing, will do all the things that my father failed to do. He completely ignored Tai Qin Yunluan's trembling body and her angry and livid face, and announced. However, Tai Qin Yunluan could not lose her temper. She had to endure, lest she anger Nitian Hanxing and arouse his rebellious intent, turning him into an inverse demon. A pair of jade-like hands were tightly held by her, and her nails dug deep into her flesh. She secretly said to herself, I will endure. After the evil girl, if you are still alive, you and I will be irreconcilable. If Nitian Hanxing was really alive at that time, his strength would have reached another level. Her fate would most likely be the same as that of the princess back then, to be forcibly taken away and become Nitian Hanxing's woman. Nitian Hanxing looked up to the sky and laughed. Then, this matter is settled. Dismissed. As if he was the master, he took the lead to announce and opened the giant door of the hall first. There were layers of guards outside the door, and there were many royal members that they brought, waiting patiently. When Nitian Hanxing's eyes swept over the Taiqing royal members, his eyes suddenly lit up. The eldest princess, Taiqing Yunhui? Among the Taiqing royal members, Taiqing Yunhui was patiently and quietly waiting for Taiqing Yunluan to come out. Suddenly, she heard an unforgettable voice. She looked up, and her eyes immediately burned with hatred. Haha, after so many years you are still thinking about me? Nitian Hanxing looked at Taiqing Yunhui's elegant and proud figure, and his lust was aroused. Since he did not get Taiqing Yunluan, it would be good to quench his thirst with Taiqing Yunhui first. What a coincidence, I have been thinking about you all these years. In terms of looks, you and your sister can be said to be on par, and can be called sisters. If I let you sisters serve me together, wouldn't it be fun? Taiqing Yunhui only had cold hatred in her eyes, shameless. Nitian Hanxing laughed. Good scolding. I like it when you hate me, it's only fun to play with you like this. Come here. With a grasp in the air, Taiqing Yunhui immediately felt a great pressure, and her whole body could not move. With a scream, she was dragged out of the Taiqing royal members team. Nitian Hanxing laughed unscrupulously. Let's bring her back to have some fun, ha ha. Stop it. Tai Chin Yunluan, who had just walked out of the hall, saw this scene, and she, who had long been furious, finally exploded. With a pull from her chest, Tai Chin Yunluan pulled out several snow lotuses that were condensed from yin and yang. The snow lotuses exploded in the air, and the universe in a small area was immediately replaced. Tai Chin Yunhui, who was being controlled, was moved back behind Tai Chin Yunluan. Her beautiful face turned pale, and there was a lingering fear on her face, but also a deeper hatred. She did not understand why such an evil person was still alive. Could it be that good people do not live long, but bad people live for 1,000 years? Nitian Hanxing's grasp missed, and his eyes suddenly turned cold, and he stared at Tai Chin Yunluan. You dare to stop me? The inverse will was surging all over his body, and there were signs of it surging. The Mermaid Emperor secretly knew that things were not good. At this moment, Nitian Hanxing was already on the verge of turning into an inverse demon, and he could not take any provocation. Tai Chin Yunluan stared at him, but did not dare to provoke him with words. Nitian Hanxing said domineeringly, "Give her to me immediately, or I'll bring you to my bed too." In front of the royal family members of the 4 great empires, he said such lewd words, which really caused an uproar. But Nitian Hanxing did not care at all, or rather, he did not care about the thoughts of those ants. His rebellious intent became stronger, and he sneered, "You should understand that if you displease me, I will turn into an inverse demon, and you will all die. So, if you know what's good for you, send her to my bed obediently." Shameless! Tai Chin Yunluan was trembling with anger. He actually threatened her with this. For those who did not know what the inverse demon was, they did not know what it was. But the Mermaid Emperor Bing Huatsangxing was very clear about it. Now it seemed that even Nitian Hanxing himself understood that his rebellious intent had reached the edge, and one step further would be the body of the inverse demon. It was because of this that he was even more unscrupulous, because he knew very well that any unreasonable request he made would be met. Hearing this, Nitian Hanxing laughed. "Shameless? Well, then I will be even more shameless. Tai Chin Yunluan, I order you to take off your clothes now. Don't refuse me. If I am not satisfied, I will immediately turn into an inverse demon." "What?" Tai Chin Yunluan's face turned red, and she gritted her teeth in anger. Nitian Hanxing said playfully, "What? You don't agree? Not satisfied? Well, I will deepen my rebellious intent, and then it will be too late for you to regret. Take it off immediately, I will only give you 3 breaths of time." He was lawless and did not take anyone seriously, because he knew very well that his request would definitely be met, and no one would dare to offend him, even if it was just verbal provocation. This feeling of commanding the world, and no one dared to disobey him, was the highest state that he had been pursuing all his life. One thought to rule the world, and any disobedience, any obstruction, and any disobedience would be wiped out. Tai Chin Yunluan clenched her jade-like hands, and her heart was in a battle. How could she, such a noble monarch, strip naked in public? But if she disobeyed, the consequences would be terrible. The rumor of the inverse demon was also recorded in the Tai Chin royal family's secret book. 8 emperors joined forces to barely suppress it. Now that it had appeared, who could match it? Swoosh! At this moment, a stumbling figure rushed over anxiously and landed directly in front of Nitian Hanxing. He panted and said, "Bad news, my king, Nitian Sha has been killed." Nitian Hanxing, who was enjoying the ridicule, suddenly fell from the joy of commanding the world to anger. "Nitian Sha? Who dares to kill him? Did no one tell him that Nitian Sha is one of my people?" The one who came to report was the injured Nitian Aoyun. He was waiting for this rhetorical question. He gritted his teeth and said, "I know." But he did not take the king seriously at all. Not only did he seriously injure me, but he also killed Nitian Sha. He did not take me seriously? Nitian Hanxing sneered, and his rebellious intent surged. Nitian Aoyun said, "Yes. He threatened that even if the king himself was here, he would still kill him. He. Nitian Hanxing's eyes were filled with deep murderous intent, and the lustful thoughts in his mind disappeared. In terms of rebelliousness, it was obvious that Tai Qing Yunluan and Tai Qing Yunhui's disobedience was far less than the person who did not take him seriously and wantonly killed him. Chapter 1550. A murderous aura mixed with the defiant will rose into the sky. The mermaid emperor was in trouble and said angrily, "Who is so ungrateful to offend him of all people? No, I have to go there myself. I can't let Nitian Hanxing be unsatisfied. If necessary, I will kill the person who provoked him." However, Nitian Hanxing did not leave immediately. He looked down at Nitian Aoyun, who was kneeling on one knee, and said coldly, "If he is dead, why are you still alive?" Nitian Aoyun explained, because, before he could finish, Nitian Hanxing slapped his head with his palm, and the terrible defiant will turned Nitian Hanxing's body into nothingness. "I, Nitian Hanxing, never keep useless people," Nitian Hanxing said coldly, and immediately closed his eyes, as if searching for traces of Nitian Aoyun when he flew over. After a moment, he opened his cold eyes and grinned, revealing his pale teeth. "Let me see who dares to make me, Nitian Hanxing, unhappy." Swish! Nitian Hanxing rushed forward. The mermaid emperor flew over as well. Taiqing Yunluan and Binghua Sangxing looked at each other, thought about it, and chose to follow. Before leaving, Taiqing Yunluan thought about it and decided to take Taiqing Yunhui with her. If Nitian Hanxing met her alone, the consequences could be imagined. With her by his side, Nitian Hanxing would have to be careful. At the heavenly immortal tower, Su Yu, Taiqing Yunyu, Binghua Sangxing, and Nitian Lingshan were drinking. The four of them chatted, and the atmosphere was quite lively. It could be seen that although the three of them came from different empires, because they were not considered the core members of the royal family, they had less to worry about and could get along well. Listening to their conversation, Su Yu thought of Zhan Wushuang for some reason. He had many friends in his life, but most of them gradually drifted apart. Because they could not keep up with Su Yu's progress, they slowly lost contact and eventually became ordinary friends. Only Zhan Wushuang, although not a friend, was not an enemy. He was someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Su Yu. He did not know where he had taken Hanxian to. The two god realms were connected, and he did not know if they had come to the lost god realm. Just as Su Yu's thoughts were wandering, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. He immediately turned his head and looked behind him. Taiqing Mystic Jade noticed Su Yu's strange behavior and asked, "What are you looking at? Wooden walls?" Su Yu shook his head, looking slightly grave. "There are a few extremely powerful auras locking onto this place. All of you should retreat." "Ah? Why didn't I sense it?" Taiqing Mystic Jade giggled and teased. "You're on par with us. What powerful aura can you sense? Drink, drink, drink a few more cups and you won't be drunk anymore." Su Yu turned his head and looked at them helplessly. He then waved his hand, and the Tai East Emperor bell flew out, trapping them within it. The three of them were startled. They were both surprised by the mysterious grade of the item and surprised by Su Yu's seriousness. Judging from his expression, he didn't seem to be joking. Not long after, a scene that shocked the three of them appeared. Through the window, they could clearly see that the clouds in the sky were rapidly flowing into the distance like waves. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth that filled the surroundings seemed to be suppressed by something and kept boiling away. It was as if some kind of powerful existence was rapidly approaching. After a few more breaths of time, the sky was completely empty and incomparably quiet. An oppressive feeling that came from the soul slowly descended. Buzz, 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 buzz. The heavenly immortal tower, which was surrounded by seals, began to tremble without warning, and it became more and more intense. The Dragon Elephant King, who was waiting for instructions outside, suddenly opened the door and entered. He came to Su Yu's side and looked out the window together, his expression also full of solemnity. At this moment, a faint red light rolled over, as if there was a sea of blood rolling in the sky. Looking at it, the sky was indeed blood-red. But in addition to the color of blood, there was a series of afterimages. The afterimages were all clear as if they were real. After the Dragon Elephant King saw the afterimages clearly, he was so shocked that he retreated again and again, leaning against the Tai East Emperor bell and falling to the ground. Suyu didn't look back. He waved his sleeves, and the Tai East Emperor bell enveloped the Dragon Elephant King. "You go in too," Suyu said lightly. The Dragon Elephant King collapsed to the ground, his eyes replaced by deep awe and fear. Taiching Mystic Jade helped him up in surprise. "Dragon Elephant King, what are you afraid of? This is the territory of your Taichu dynasty." The Dragon Elephant King's tone was hoarse and low because of nervousness. "Others may not be afraid, but there is one person who must be afraid." "Who?" Taiching Mystic Jade blinked. "Nitian Hanxing." The Dragon Elephant King only said 4 words. Taiching Mystic Jade's expression froze like ice, and the ice and fire scripture and Nitian Lenshan, who were originally relaxed, were all frozen in place. Are you sure it's him?" Taiching Mystic Jade asked nervously. The Dragon Elephant King said, "I would never mistake him for anyone else." Ha ha ha. At this time, a series of laughter suddenly echoed in the private room, and at the same time, a young man stood strangely with his arms crossed. "It should be here, right?" When they saw this figure, Taiching Mystic Jade, the Ice and Fire Scripture, and Nitian Lenshan trembled as if they had been electrocuted, and their chests felt like they were blocked by a huge stone, unable to speak. It was him. It was Nitian Hanxing, the powerful creature who was so terrible that even the god realm trembled. Nitian Hanxing glanced around, and when his eyes swept over the Tai East Emperor bell, he laughed. The Dragon Elephant King of the Taichu Empire, the junior of the Ice and Fire Empire, and the junior of my heaven-defying empire. Oh, and there is also a little beauty of the Taiching Empire? Haha, the atmosphere is not bad. However, his eyes were like lightning, shooting towards the mysterious young man standing in front of the window with his hands behind his back, and he grinned, revealing his white teeth. However, what is more interesting is that there is actually a character here who has the 23rd Emperor-based Saint artifact, the Tai East Emperor bell. What? The 23rd Emperor-based Saint artifact? Taiching Mystic Jade, the Ice and Fire Scripture, and Nitian Lenshan gasped. That was a terrifying Emperor-based Saint artifact that even the royal family did not necessarily have. No matter how stupid they were, they finally understood that Suyu, who called them brothers, was by no means a simple character. In other words, it was you who killed Nitian Sha? Nitian Hanxing stared at Suyu, his whole body surging with defiance. Suyu sighed secretly. He did not want to encounter Nitian Hanxing, but who would have thought that even though he deliberately hid his divine form, he could not avoid encountering him. They were really fated enemies. Yes. Suyu did not deny it. The fact that he could find this place was enough to prove that he had identified the murderer. Nitian Hanxing sneered. Then do you know what will happen to those who kill my people? As always I know, Suyu said expressionlessly. Nitian Hanxing's defiance intensified, and his smile became even more sinister. Since you know, you still dare to kill my people. You really do not take me, Nitian Hanxing, seriously? Suyu responded indifferently, there is no need for me to take you seriously. It is you who thinks too highly of yourself. Upon hearing this, the defiance on Nitian Hanxing's body skyrocketed, and he laughed. Good. You really have guts, but killing such a person gives me a sense of satisfaction. Suyu's eyes turned, and he stared at him coldly. If I were you, facing an unknown enemy to be safe, I would avoid direct confrontation. Haha. Who do you think you are? Why should I, Nitian Hanxing, be compared to you? Nitian Hanxing sneered. My way of doing things is that those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. As soon as he finished speaking, Nitian Hanshing struck with his palm. The palm print contained boundless defiance and was extremely destructive. Suyu clenched his fists, but in the end, he chose to endure. If he fought fiercely and completely angered Nitian Hanshing's defiance, it would be troublesome to achieve the demon body. Putting aside his thoughts, Suyu moved like a shadow and teleported to the side of the Tai East Emperor Bell. He clenched his 5 fingers and grabbed the Tai East Emperor Bell. Then, with a thought, he teleported hundreds of millions of miles away. Nitian Hanshing's palm hit thin air, and his face was filled with a maniacal grin. Ha ha! Run away like a stray dog. Killing him will give you a greater sense of accomplishment. Whoosh! A pair of wings formed by the defiance emerged behind him, ignoring the obstacles of space and traveling hundreds of millions of miles in an instant. Suyu held the Tai East Emperor Bell in his hand and shuttled between yin and yang, choosing to avoid a head-on confrontation with Nitian Hanshing. Taiching Miaoyu was resentful. Damn it! Why is there such a person in this world? The Ice and Fire Scripture and Nitian Lingshan were silent for a long time, then looked up at the sky and sighed. Yes, why can't anyone destroy him? Taiching Miaoyu's eyes were filled with regret and disappointment. There is only one person in the world who can destroy him. Unfortunately, that person is in seclusion, which is why Nitian Hanshing is so arrogant. Who was the person she was talking about? Any martial artist in the God realm knew. That could only be one person. Suyu, an unparalleled legend who swept across the sky of the God realm like a comet. Only he could suppress Nitian Hanshing. Taiching Miaoyu looked at Suyu's back, with an apologetic and determined look in her eyes. Mr. Su, please let us go. This matter started because of us, causing Nitian Hanshing to misunderstand you as the murderer who killed Nitian Sha. Please let us go and we will take responsibility. Suyu shook his head. Would Nitian Hanshing listen to their explanation? It would only cause them to lose their lives for no reason. Especially Taiching Miaoyu's fate. Based on Nitian Hanshing's lustful nature, her fate would probably be even more miserable. Brother Su, we can't implicate you. Please let us go, Taiching Miaoyu said anxiously. Suyu chuckled. Who said Nitian Hanshing wronged me? Yes, I killed Nitian Sha. The 3 of them were a little dumbfounded. It couldn't be, Mr. Su was so powerful. Looking around at the Emperor-based Saint artifact they were in, the 3 of them were stunned again. With such a powerful Emperor-based Saint artifact in hand, how weak could his true strength be? Behind them, the breath of Nitian Hanshing suddenly appeared. His speed was comparable to Suyu's. Suyu pondered for a moment and slowly slowed down. Taiching Miaoyu was shocked. Mr. Su, why did you stop? Do you want to die? Unexpectedly, Suyu said helplessly, it seems that I can't pull away from him. There's no other way, I can only kill him. What? The 3 of them were dumbfounded, thinking that they had heard it wrong. Suyu could kill him? Only the Dragon Elephant King was trembling all over, his eyes showing a long-lost anticipation and excitement. He murmured, to be able to see the long silent legendary figure unsheathe his sword, my life will not be in vain. Chapter 1551. Boom. Nitian Hanshing, accompanied by bursts of thunder, suddenly caught up. He stopped 1,000 feet away and sneered, why don't you run? At this time, Suyu had stopped completely and turned to stare at Nitian Hanshing. Even without exchanging blows, he could instinctively feel that the current Nitian Hanshing was no longer what he used to be. He was no longer the same as he was in the past. Even Nitian Gyun, who was known as the #1 person in the 4 empires, was not as good as him. I have to admire your courage. In this world, there are only a few who dare to face me, Nitian Hanshing. Nitian Hanshing sneered. Unfortunately, those who face me directly will be turned into ashes without exception. Su Yu said calmly, compared to the past, your arrogance is even greater, but I don't know if your strength is the same. Everyone was slightly stunned. Listening to Su Yu's tone, why did it seem like he knew Nitian Hanxing? Nitian Hanxing's eyes narrowed as he looked at Su Yu again. Oh? You've seen me? Or are you one of my defeated opponents in the past? Su Yu did not say a word and did not answer. Because the answer was exactly the opposite. Nitian Hanxing had never been defeated in his life, but in the hands of one person, he had been defeated twice. You talk big, then let me see how long you can hold on. Nitian Hanxing moved like lightning and attacked Su Yu in an instant. Su Yu sighed silently and his figure moved, teleporting to one side. However, just as he appeared, another wave of incomparably ferocious divine power suddenly attacked him from behind. The divine power was vast and contained a mysterious concept that was rarely mastered in today's world. Su Yu wanted to avoid it, but was surprised to find that, under the mysterious concept, he seemed to be locked in a space and could not break free. Without thinking, a dark scale appeared in Su Yu's palm, blocking the vital part of his head. The person who attacked was extremely clever. He let out a soft sound as if he recognized the origin of the scale. Knowing that he could not attack by force, he temporarily changed the angle and hit Su Yu's chest. Puff! An extremely dull sound came, tearing the clothes on Su Yu's body. However, when it hit Su Yu's back, it was like a mortal's finger inserted into an iron plate, and the person's wrist was shattered. At the same time, the mysterious palm force bounced back with divine power. If there were no accidents, the fate of the sneak attacker was no different from Nitian Sha. However, an accident really did happen. His opponent had actually sensed that something was amiss. His body instantly turned into nothingness, and the rebounding force of his palm was dissolved as if it had struck cotton. Su Yu leaped some distance away and turned his head to take a look. He was slightly surprised. A mermaid in an imperial robe had his chest pierced through, revealing a hideous bloody hole, and his heart was destroyed. However, not a single drop of blood flowed out. His opponent's expression was also calm, as if he was not in any pain. He was just staring at Su Yu with slight surprise. Su Yu was also surprised. The person who attacked was the Mermaid Emperor. The Mermaid Emperor stared at Su Yu and shook his head regretfully. It's a pity that you have angered someone you shouldn't have. For the safety of the God Realm, you have to rest for the time being. In an instant, Su Yu understood the Mermaid Emperor's intention. Fearing that he would not die, Nitian Hanxing was enraged. His inverse will erupted, causing him to evolve into an inverse demon. Hence, he wanted to kill Su Yu with a sneak attack. After saying that, the Mermaid Emperor's eyes were cold, and he attacked mercilessly. However, with a roar of thunder, the residual shadow of Nitian Hanxing pierced through the sky like lightning. The target of the attack was none other than the Mermaid Emperor. As the two exchanged blows, the Mermaid Emperor's body was on the verge of collapse, but he still looked as if he had not been seriously injured. Nitian Hanxing revealed his real body and stared at the Mermaid Emperor contemptuously. Who are you? I, Nitian Hanxing, want to kill someone. Since when did you have the right to sneak attack him? Get lost. The Mermaid Emperor was slightly angry, but he immediately calmed down. He understood that his sneak attack had angered Nitian Hanxing even more. He silently retreated to the side, and the injuries on his body immediately healed. This scene made Su Yu's eyes flash. All right, no one is bothering us. Nitian Hanxing grinned. Let's continue. Heaven-defying earth-swallowing technique. Nitian Hanxing displayed the second inherited divine technique of the heaven-defying empire, transforming into a ferocious giant mouth that covered the sky. As the giant mouth opened, the blazing sun lost its color, the earth fell into darkness, and the sun and moon lost their light. It was like the end of the world. Everyone was shocked. Was this the heaven-defying earth-swallowing technique? Tai Qing Yunluan and Bing Huatsangxing, who had rushed over at the same time, were shocked and trembling. A year ago, Nitian Hanxing had displayed this technique and easily defeated the three of them. It was still fresh in their minds. Binghua Sangxing stared at Su Yu regretfully. It's a pity that he was able to kill Nitian Sha and is not a weak person of the Empire. He is about to be destroyed by Nitian Hanxing. It is indeed a pity. Let's see how long he can hold on. Back then, the three of us joined forces, but we could only hold on for half an hour, Tai Qing Yunluan said regretfully, staring at Nitian Hanxing with deep anger and helplessness. In today's God realm, Nitian Hanxing was the only one, and there was no creature that could compete with him. He was already an invincible existence. However, the next scene made them feel even more incredulous. They saw Su Yu turn over his palm, and 9 golden spots of light, like 9 blazing suns in a dark world, broke through the darkness and rose into the sky. The 9 blazing suns flew across the sky and immediately rotated, and the golden light became more and more dazzling. The darkness was shattered, leaving only the golden world. All the creatures clearly saw the 9 suns rotating, crushing the giant mouth that had swallowed the world. How is this possible? Tai Qing Yunluan was shocked. Binghua Sangxing looked even more horrified. Impossible. The divine technique that the three of us joined forces could not defeat, and he destroyed it with one move? Who is he? How can there be such a powerful creature in my God realm? Is this impossible? Even the Mermaid Emperor looked surprised, and immediately fell into deep thought. The giant mouth was shattered, and a figure retreated in a sorry state. He looked surprised, and then his eyes showed a hint of crazy laughter. Ha 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 ha! No wonder you dare to go against me, Nitian Hanxing. It turns out that there are still real experts hidden in my God realm. Tell me your name. I, Nitian Hanxing, do not kill nameless people. Su Yu said indifferently, you will know later. Nitian Hanxing's fighting spirit was crazy, and it was accompanied by a surge of defiance. He looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. Ha ha! Well, I haven't met a strong opponent for a long time, maybe you can let me have a little more fun. Heaven-defying soul-seizing technique. At this time, Nitian Hanxing roared and turned into a transparent giant palm. The giant palm had a shadow and was invisible, and everyone could only see the shadow of the palm vanish. He slammed down from the sky, and all the tangible things were safe and sound. However, the continent covered by the shadow of the palm was destroyed. Whether it was an ant like a speck of dust or a level 4 deity like a heaven master, they were all killed in an instant, without exception. Their bodies were intact, but their souls were destroyed. Tai Qing Yunluan's pupils shrank, and she grabbed Yun Hui with one hand and retreated until she was out of the range of the palm's shadow. Her full chest rose and fell violently, showing the turmoil in her heart. She said solemnly, the heaven-defying empire's first inherited divine technique. The divine technique that even Nitian Guyun has never successfully cultivated. Binghua Sangxing and the Mermaid Emperor immediately retreated, afraid of being exposed to this palm. This was because this technique could also cause fatal damage to them. It had caused the death of countless lives, and it was just the appearance of the palm's shadow. 10,000 realms annihilation. Nitian Hanxing roared, and the palm print suddenly slammed down. Boom! The palm print slammed down, and Tai Qing Yunluan and the other emperors retreated again, because their souls were deeply throbbing, as if they were about to be destroyed. Su Yu also felt the threat from his soul. He had lost the suppression of the divine 9-dragon cauldron, and his soul defense had lost its invincible advantage. However, he was not the slightest bit anxious. Instead, he flipped his palm, and a dark silver long sword appeared. As soon as this sword appeared, the dazzling golden light of the 9 golden suns immediately dimmed, and all of them swirled and fell. A faint silver light illuminated the dark earth. Su Yu held the long sword in his hand, and with a glimmer, he rose against the sky like a comet. the destructive palm's shadow disappeared, and the glimmer was like a bug fire. The two suddenly collided at the border of heaven and earth. Whether it was Taichin Yunluan, Binghuo Songxing, or the Mermaid Emperor, they were all deeply attracted by the two lights between heaven and earth at this moment. They held their breath and looked into the distance, watching the collision that cut through heaven and earth. Boom! The violent roar of the soul level spread out with the power of the divine realm. The mighty sword energy, the boundless sharpness, the destructive palm shadow, and the terrible will to destroy the soul erupted in the line between heaven and earth. The sweeping waves, wrapped in the aura of destruction of the soul, were mixed with the boundless sharpness, as if they would not stop until this part of the world was destroyed, destroying the yin and yang of the universe. Taichin Yunluan, Binghuo Songxing, and the Mermaid Emperor were all horrified and immediately retreated. They watched as the radiation shock wave swept away countless lives, destroyed the three great royal families, and swept away the many strong men of the divine realm. They wanted to save them, but in the terrible wave of the primordial chaos, they could only protect themselves. Watching them suffer a catastrophe, the man of the divine light who was fighting with Nitian Hanxing suddenly pulled out a thick chain that was millions of feet long. "Suppress!" he shouted loudly, and the chain hovered in the sky, encircling the shock wave that swept in all directions. The shock wave hit the chain and was rebounded back to the center of the explosion. The shock wave from all directions once again gathered in the center, and a violent collision occurred, causing the energy to erupt wildly up and down. Looking from afar, two terrifying energy beams penetrated the heaven and earth. After a few breaths, the terrible destructive energy slowly dissipated. However, within the range of the chain, everything had been wiped out, whether it was a living creature or a tangible object, and not a single speck of dust remained. Far away in the sky, Taichin Yunhui witnessed the earth-shattering scene, and her soul trembled. She stared at Su Yu from afar, and her throat seemed to be blocked by something, unable to speak for a long time. She took a few deep breaths before stammering, He is actually like this." Taichin Yunluan was also horrified and deeply shocked. "My divine realm, is there really an unparalleled divine king hidden in it?" Suddenly, she realized the meaning of Taichin Yunhui's words, and said in shock, "You know him?" Taichin Yunhui took a few deep breaths and said, "He is a member of the meet of outstanding talents." "How is that possible?" Taichin Yunluan exclaimed. "That kind of unparalleled divine king, the unparalleled saint, is a member of the younger generation?" Binghuo Songxing's eyes fluctuated violently, unable to calm down, and he shook his head decisively. "Impossible. He must be an old monster who has lived for hundreds of millions of years. It is very likely that he is an ancient creature who escaped the calamity in the ancient times, and not a member of the younger generation. That kind of divine technique that brought about the power of destruction with every move brought an indelible shock to the depths of their hearts." Chapter 1552. As such, they firmly believed that the mysterious figure was the ancient saint who had hidden in the world. Unparalleled godly king? An ancient living being? Taichin Yunhui's eyes widened in disbelief. The existence she had come into close contact with was such a distant existence. Thinking about all the things that happened before, Taichin Yunhui felt like she was in a dream. When she recalled how she had looked down on him, she couldn't help but shiver and break out in cold sweat. The reason she was able to live until now was all thanks to the benevolence of that senior who didn't care about a junior like her. Otherwise, with just a thought from him, she would have been erased from the world. "Yunhui, tell me, how did you two get to know each other?" Taichin Yunluan said emotionally as she stared at the majestic figure. Taichin Yunhui stammered as she explained everything that had happened between them. After listening to it, Taichin Yunluan's joyful expression was immediately replaced by solemnity and unsightly. Taichin Yunhui felt like a disaster was about to befall her. She said with an indescribable pressure in her chest, "Don't worry, Your Majesty, I I definitely won't implicate the Taiqing dynasty. If that senior wants to blame me, I will use my death to apologize. Taiqing Yunluan looked at Yun Hui apologetically. After a long silence, she couldn't help but sigh. If that senior is really dissatisfied with you, Yun Hui, at that time, don't blame me for not caring about you. These words had undoubtedly determined Taiqing Yunhui's fate. Her heart was filled with sorrow. It was an unintentional collision, but it caused her to perish. That old monster that was billions of years old could affect the ups and downs of her fate with just a wave of his hand. Helplessness and sorrow surged in her heart. She could only accept her fate and sobbed, "Yun Hui understands." At this moment, she couldn't help but think about the unparalleled hero that she had promised to marry. She smiled bitterly in her heart. Even if I want to fulfill my promise, I'm afraid I won't be able to. Taiqing Yunluan painfully closed her eyes. If there was a chance, she didn't want Yun Hui to be hurt. However, looking at the supreme figure, Taiqing Yunluan's heart was as firm as steel. She had no choice. Crack, crack. At this moment, the chains suddenly retracted. Many beings looked over and their pupils shrunk to the size of needles. They wished their eyes could fly to the center of the battlefield and look at them from a close distance. Slowly, when all the residual power dissipated, the two figures were revealed. Suyu held his sword with one hand and stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His posture was graceful, and it seemed as if the beam of light that had collided with heaven and earth had not touched him in the slightest. On the other hand, Nitian Hanxing's imperial robe was in tatters. His whole body was covered with blood stains and densely covered with residual sword qi. Especially that insufferably arrogant face, there was a sword scar that was so deep that the bone could be seen. Blood kept flowing, and no matter how much Nitian Hanxing's divine power tried to repair it, it was useless. He was actually at a disadvantage. Everyone was horrified, but they felt that it was reasonable. Secret ecstasy grew in everyone's hearts like weeds. Finally, there was someone who could suppress Nitian Hanxing. At this moment, although Nitian Hanxing was in a sorry state, he was not timid at all. Instead, the temporary defeat had stimulated his rebellious will to not admit defeat. His face was even more ferocious as he growled, "Who are you?" Suyu replied calmly, "Didn't I say that you would find out soon?" Nitian Hanxing stared at Suyu and could not help but let out a low, inhuman roar from his throat. It was like some kind of ancient ferocious creature that was sleeping, and it was creepy to hear. The Mermaid Emperor's expression suddenly changed, and he shouted, "Don't push him anymore, he is showing signs of turning into a demon." That unsettling roar was the voice of the demon. Suyu turned a deaf ear to it. He held the long sword in his hand and pointed it at Nitian Hanxing from afar. "I haven't seen you for 2 years, and you have indeed grown a lot. Unfortunately, as I said, the growth of your strength is not worthy of your arrogance." 2 years? Nitian Hanxing's pupils shrank. He still could not remember when he had fought with such an unparalleled divine king 2 years ago. However, he would never admit that in this world there was a creature that could step on top of him. Only he could step on others, and no one was qualified to overpower him. I, Nitian Hanxing, will never be defeated. Nitian Hanxing roared, and the reverse will erupted. The terrifying reverse will carried the will of heaven and earth, and it turned into a majestic shadow of a chain behind him. The shadow was extremely long, stretching to the end of the world. This scene shocked everyone again and made them feel even more horrified. The shadow of the chain of rules. His reverse will is so strong that it has triggered the descent of the shadow of the chain of rules. That was definitely the reverse will approaching the critical point. One more step forward and there would be a qualitative change. If I want you to die, the heavens will not allow you to live. If I want you to forget, the earth will not allow you to exist. Nitian Hanxing was like an overlord who ruled the universe, destroying all existences that went against his will. When he finished speaking, the majestic reverse will turned into a towering giant arrow, revealing the god-killing reverse will of the divine king of annihilation, and it locked on to Suyu. Die! The aura around Nitian Hanshing soared and pointed at Suyu, as if he was a king who dominated the world and was deciding the death of a creature. Suyu's eyes gradually became fierce, and he shouted briefly but powerfully, "Die!" Boom! The giant arrow of reverse will shuttled through yin and yang, piercing through the universe, and shot towards Suyu in an instant. In front of the towering giant arrow, Suyu was as weak as dust. However, not only did Suyu not draw his sword, but he also put away the dark silver long sword and put his palms together. His figure suddenly blurred, as if it was covered with a layer of mysterious brilliance that no one could see through. Layers of strange flames flickered on top of his head. The strange scene once again aroused a burst of surprise. No one understood what it was, except for one person, and that was the reincarnation of the former World Annihilation Emperor, the Mermaid Emperor. His pupils contracted violently, and his eyeballs bulged. He was unprecedentedly shocked, and his heart was filled with monstrous waves. He exclaimed in his heart, "The God of all paths, the Path God." The flickering lights were the signs of becoming the God of all paths. As far as the Mermaid Emperor knew, in the Lost God Realm, the Star River God Realm, and the Lost Nation, there was only one person who showed signs of becoming a Path God. Under the flickering lights, Suyu's figure also seemed to be flickering, mysterious and unpredictable. Suddenly, the divine light on the surface of Suyu's body fluctuated violently, and behind him appeared 1,000 feet of light. A total of 8,000 divine Laksana suddenly appeared in the dark sky, from nothingness to reality, from nothingness to reality. Each of them emitted a shocking divine light, filled with boundless divine path. There were 8,000 of them, covering the endless sky. Their divine light shone on the earth. Their divine path shook yin and yang. Their silhouettes intimidated all living beings. However, they were like guardians, surrounding an inconspicuous dust, like stars surrounding the moon, protecting their king, the king of all gods. Is it really the divine king? Taichin Yunluan was stunned. However, suddenly, she remembered a legendary figure who had been missing for 2 years. He had also practiced many divine paths. Could he be Binghua? Sangxing also came to a sudden realization. However, if this was the case, he was even more shocked. It's him. The last news he sent out was that he had killed Nitian Gyun. This news pushed his legendary life to the pinnacle. A junior had grown to the point of killing a king of an empire in just a few years. That had already made many of the older generation feel incredible. If this person in front of them, who was comparable to hundreds of millions of old monsters, was really Suyu, then how much stronger had he become in the 2 years he had been missing? Was that possible? The facts in front of them fiercely whipped their hearts. The 8,000 divine Laksana opened their eyes at the same time. The 8,000 divine paths burst out at the same time, merging into a strange object. It turned out to be a broken oil lamp. The oil lamp was weak, as if it was about to be annihilated. However, the light emitted by the oil lamp dissipated wherever it shone. Whether it was the atmosphere, the space, or the giant arrow formed by Nitian Hanshing's reverse will, they all dissipated. Instead, there was an additional wisp of 9-colored gas. Some of that gas fell to the ground, and on the devastated earth, it evolved into mountains, insects, fish, birds, and beasts. Some of it floated in the sky and evolved into white clouds, rain and mist, snowflakes, and the common people. All people saw with their own eyes that a mass of gas, in a short moment, evolved into the scene of the beginning of heaven and earth. The Mermaid Emperor's eyes flashed with passion, and he murmured excitedly, "The beginning of heaven and earth, the birth of a breath, the creation of all things. Taichu Chi. It can't be wrong, this is the Taichu Chi that only the God of all gods can release." It was rumored that the Taichu realm was derived from a wisp of Taichu Chi. and the Tao God was the only special God that could create Taichu Chi. That oil lamp burned everything, decomposing and restoring it to its original state. Taichu Chi. The expression on Nitian Hanxing's face changed drastically. First, it was surprise, then shock, then a sudden realization, and finally, it turned into a roar that shook the heavens and the earth. "It's you!" That roar shook the mountains and rivers, shattered the stars, and resounded in the lost nation that was billions of miles away. Taichin Yunhui's eyes flashed with deep shock, and she could not help but murmur, "My king, that divine king, who is he?" Taichin Yunhuan's chest rose and fell, and her eyes were bright and full of surprise. In this world, there is a second person who can suppress Nitian Hanxing since ancient times? And who could be hated by Nitian Hanxing to such an extent? Who else could it be? Taichin Yunhui's mind roared, as if thousands of disastrous thunders were bombarding her, causing her mind to go blank. He is Su Yu. The 8,000 divine Laksana dispersed, and the oil lamp also went out, sinking into nothingness. The creature that was surrounded by the deities revealed his figure. The impenetrable divine light on the surface of his body had been melted by the light of the oil lamp just now. His real body was revealed. A handsome young man with an ice crystal crown on his head, dressed in an elegant snow-white robe, with silver hair like a waterfall. The wanted portrait that had once shocked the world had long been imprinted in people's hearts. At first glance, the hearts of all creatures seemed to be gripped by something and stopped beating. It was him. It was Su Yu. It was the unparalleled legend who had been missing for several years. He was back. However, unlike the portrait, the Su Yu with the crown on his head was like a real king, the divine king of the gods. With his hands behind his back, he stared at Nitian Hanxing indifferently and took a step forward. That step seemed to shatter the heavens and the earth. Nitian Hanxing, on the other hand, was severely injured and vomited divine blood. Chapter 1553. He had endured humiliation for 2 years. He did not hesitate to kill his father to become a god. He did not hesitate to be swallowed by the inverse demon, just to bury Su Yu one day. It was not easy for his strength to advance by leaps and bounds, surpassing the god realm. However, the reality was so cruel, slapping him from the 9 heavens to hell. Su Yu, the man he hated the most in his life, was still above him. Smack! A huge black shadow lashed out mercilessly, sending him flying. He fell to the ground and into the mortal realm. It was the chain. Nitian Hanxing's inverse will surged. With a roar, he shattered the earth and rose into the sky. However, the black shadow struck again, and he was slapped to the ground again. He was unwilling to give up and flew up again. This time, the height of 10,000 feet was taken down. His inverse will did not diminish, but the chain was like a shadow. Less than 10,000 feet high, he was slapped into the mortal realm again. The cycle repeated. 100 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet, until the chain slammed down and crushed him to the ground, like a 5-finger mountain, unable to move. No matter how he roared, no matter how much he roared, the 10,000 feet chain was as steady as a mountain. Nitian Hanxing, from the peak of the god realm, was suppressed in the dust. No one believed that it would be the arrogant, domineering, and willful Nitian Hanxing who did whatever he wanted. Under everyone's gaze, Su Yu held the chain in his hand, like an invincible king, calmly landed, looking down at Nitian Hanxing indifferently. He had been defeated again. He had been thoroughly defeated. I refuse to accept this. Nitian Hanxing punched the ground with both fists, shattering a piece of land. Smack! What responded to him was a foot that pressed his head into the ground. It was as if it was trampling on his head. The weak are weak and can only obey the strong. You have no right to refuse. Su Yu said lightly, "This is your way of inverse will, I will return it to you." Ah! Nitian Hanxing suffered great humiliation and roared with his teeth bared. However, the foot fell on his head, pressing his head deeper into the ground, exposing the back of his neck. Swish! Su Yu took out a dark silver long sword, sharp enough to cut off his head. The cold sword pierced the back of Nitian Hanxing's neck, but he was not afraid. Instead, he laughed. Kill me? Surname Su, do you dare? You can't kill me. I have the ultimate defying intent. No one can kill me. If I don't die, I will definitely become a defiant demon. At that time, you, your women, your friends, your people, everything you've ever seen, will all die. Su Yu stroked the dark silver long sword with his fingers. Defy the demon? So, you want me to let you go? Ha 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 ha! Nitian Hanxing laughed maniacally, as if he was once again at the peak of invincibility. Are you afraid? Am I right? Ha 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 ha! First, let me go immediately. Nitian Hanxing grinned hideously, his eyes filled with hatred. Su Yu lightly flicked the dark silver long sword with his finger. What about the second one? Second, cripple your own cultivation and fulfill my request so that my thoughts will be clear. Otherwise, my rebellious will not be smooth and I will immediately turn into a rebellious demon. Don't worry, I can guarantee that if you cripple your own cultivation, I will let you live. Su Yu stared at his own eyes in the reflection of the long sword. The coldness in his eyes became deeper and deeper. Is there a third one? Third. All your women belong to me, Nitian Hanxing. Especially Yongye Chushue and Saint Lady Luoxue. I want you to send them to my bed personally. I will take your place and love them well. Ha 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 ha. All three requests were laughable, but no one was able to laugh. He was not wrong. The body of the defiant demon could not be killed. Forcibly enraging, it would only backfire and force out the destructive defiant demon. While the catastrophe of the sinful girl was still ongoing, the defiant demon had already appeared. Seeing that Su Yu was silent, Nitian Hanxing laughed wildly. What are you hesitating for? My rebellious will is getting stronger and stronger, and I might turn into a defiant demon in the next moment. If you don't want the defiant demon to be born, satisfy my three requests immediately. Huff! Su Yu sighed softly. Nitian Hanxing grinned. Why? Can't bear to? Don't worry, I will train your women well, just like I trained Yongye Wuhing's fiancé, and make them loyal to me. Shaking his head, Su Yu said softly, Death is not to be regretted. Everyone was stunned. What was Su Yu trying to do? Nitian Hanxing's grin stiffened slightly. What do you mean? Su Yu's eyes moved away from the dark silver sword, revealing a pair of eyes that were bone-chilling, as if they had been melted from ancient ice. Anyone who saw this scene felt a chill in their hearts, as if they were about to be frozen. What a terrifying gaze! Nitian Hanxing's heart suddenly stopped, as if he had missed a beat. What I mean is, if you have said your last words, you can go on your way. Su Yu raised the cold sword and said coldly. Nitian Hanxing's expression suddenly changed, and he roared, If you kill me, the defiant demon will be born. Su Yu said, Then, I will kill the defiant demon as well. Boundless murderous intent suddenly erupted. Wait. I don't want your women, I don't want you to abolish my cultivation, I just want you to let me go. Nitian Hanxing's eyes were filled with fear. How could he not know that if the defiant demon really appeared, the first to die would not be anyone else, but him? If his will was replaced by the defiant demon, Nitian Hanxing would only be left with his body, which was equivalent to death. The one who was most afraid of being killed by the defiant demon was actually him. He regretted that he had misjudged Su Yu's determination and decisiveness, and even more regretted that he had asked the wrong person. He thought that Su Yu would be like the other creatures, fearful of the birth of the defiant demon. In the end, Su Yu's face was indifferent. It's too late. Su Yu. You will regret this. Nitian Hanxing let out the last cry of his life, and his head was cut off by a dark silver light. His soul was also destroyed in an instant. The head rolled on the ground a few times and landed in front of Su Yu's feet. Its face was facing up, and its eyes were the size of copper bells, filled with hatred and a hideous grin. Imperceptibly, at the last moment of his soul's destruction, it passed on a vicious curse to Suyu. "I will wait for you in hell. Ha 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 ha." Humph! Suyu's eyes turned cold, and his soul eyes swept over, completely wiping out the remaining soul power. At this point, the number 1 Nitian Hanshin of the God Realm was completely destroyed. In his life, he was considered a rare genius, far ahead of his peers, and in less than 100 years of age, he surpassed the ancient monsters and surpassed the God Realm, becoming the Emperor of the God Realm. Unfortunately, he met Suyu, and from the moment they met, he was stepped on. Until today, he was completely buried by Suyu's sword. The vast empire, the boundless mountains and rivers, was silent. They stared at the decapitated Nitian Hanshin, as if they were in a dream. That insufferably arrogant emperor had fallen just like that? Only one person's face was gloomy and unsightly. "Suyu, you have made a big mistake." The mermaid emperor flew over, his eyes full of reproach. Suyu turned his head, calmly shaking off the blood on the dark silver long sword, and said, "How is it not a big mistake? He wants me to destroy my own cultivation and send a woman to his bed? He wants me to sacrifice myself to satisfy his request? Is this not a big mistake?" He had already seen through the Mermaid Emperor, or rather, the former World Annihilation Emperor, as a human. He would do anything to achieve his goal. The Mermaid Emperor said in a low voice, "You don't understand, what have you done? The inverse demon, we don't have the strength to fight against the inverse demon." Suyu's expression was calm. "I said, I want to kill the inverse demon." His eyes suddenly burst with fierce murderous intent, and the dark silver long sword in his hand suddenly shot out, stabbing straight at the Mermaid Emperor. The Mermaid Emperor was caught off guard, and he yelled in shock, "Suyu! You want to kill me too?" However, Suyu's cold eyes were disdainful, mercilessly stabbing at his shoulder. The Mermaid Emperor was shocked and angry, and immediately retreated. "Go!" Suyu flicked his fingertips, and the dark silver long sword flew out of his palm, stabbing straight at him. The Mermaid Emperor calmed down from the panic, and with a slide of his shoulder, he narrowly avoided the sword. Just as he was about to rebuke Suyu angrily, a low and hoarse voice came from behind him. The voice was extremely strange, and it sounded like metal rubbing against each other. It was extremely ear-piercing and evil, which made people feel extremely uncomfortable. "Ha! The long-lost heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword. Back then, the demon sword emperor also used this sword to stab me." The voice actually appeared on the Mermaid Emperor's shoulder, right under his ear. Even when the Mermaid Emperor was speaking, he could hear it as if the other party was squatting on his shoulder. Looking sideways, the Mermaid Emperor's heart suddenly stopped, and his pupils shrank sharply. He saw a creature that was as dark as a shadow standing behind him, and a face was leaning on his shoulder without anyone noticing. That face had no eyes, nose, ears, mouth, or cheek. It was a faceless man. The one who spoke was his right hand. In the palm of one hand, there was a strange hand with a mouth full of fangs and long nails. And his eyes were in the palm of his right hand. The black shadow monster stood behind the Mermaid Emperor, its faceless head resting on his shoulder, and its two hands were raised high. One was speaking, and the other was looking. At its neck, a dark silver long sword had pierced through it. Unfortunately, the demon sword emperor is no longer here. This sword can't hurt me. The faceless man laughed hoarsely. The dark silver long sword was suddenly ejected by a force and shot back towards Suyu. Suyu's eyes were like lightning, and he clenched his 5 fingers, holding the hilt of the sword. However, within the hilt of the sword, there was a mighty force that made Suyu frown deeply. His arm involuntarily transformed into the dragon claw of the World Annihilation Dragon, and the dragon body in his body surged. Only then did he manage to resolve the power in the hilt of the sword and hold the silver sword. The wound on the faceless man's throat healed instantly. "You are the inverse demon?" Su Yu put away the dark silver long sword and calmly clenched his palm, collecting the divine blood dripping from it. His mind was extremely alert, as if he had encountered the giant of the bitter sea. The faceless man let out a harsh and unpleasant voice. "Of course, I want to thank you for releasing me." Nitian Hanxing was timid and never dared to take the last step. "It was you who killed him with a sword that really stimulated the last trace of his rebellious will, and I was able to appear in the world." The palm with the eye looked around, full of nostalgia and cruelty. "The god realm that I haven't seen for a long time, the descendant of an old friend, well, all must die, all must be destroyed, this god realm, I will make it so that not even a blade of grass grows. This universe, I will destroy the sun and the moon. Those who stand in my way die." Everyone's hearts trembled. Was that the inverse demon? The mermaid emperor's face was extremely ugly. Only Su Yu said calmly, "Not even a blade of grass grows? Destroy the sun and the moon? You should think about whether you can survive first." I said, "The inverse demon, kill." Chapter 1554. Ha ha. I am an immortal and indestructible existence. Even if the 9 emperors were still alive, they wouldn't be able to do anything to me, much less you. The eyes in the inverse demon palm laughed mockingly, and the mouth in the right palm curled into a mocking arc. This god realm has been an eyesore for far too long. This time, it's time to destroy it. The NIMO said sinisterly. A destructive will that could destroy the world leaked out of the NIMO's body and swept towards the sky. Suddenly, a huge gap appeared in the sky. It was the spatial barrier. Under the flames of Annihilation's will, the gap rapidly expanded. It looked as if it wanted to burn the entire god realm and bury everything. The hearts of Tai Qing Yunluan and Bing Hua Sangxing trembled. The newly born NMO had the power to destroy the world? They could clearly sense how terrifying that destructive will was. If they were to fall into it, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long before they were destroyed into nothingness. The mermaid emperor was anxious and angry, and he complained, "Su Yu, it's all because of your stubbornness and arrogance that led to the emergence of the defiant fiends. You can't atone for your sins even if you die 100 times." Some deities were afraid of Su Yu's magical powers, so they didn't dare to criticize him in public. However, their eyes were filled with hatred. Binghua Sangxing said in a low voice, "Su Yu, you have provoked the inverse demon and harmed the common people. You must take responsibility for this." Yes. Why didn't he listen to our advice? Why did he insist on killing Nitian Hanxing? A hidden deity shouted angrily in the crowd. "It's all your fault. You're the one who harmed us." It was as if the one destroying the world was not the inverse demon, but Su Yu. Countless voices of condemnation converged into a will. Su Yu was the main culprit. They did not dare to hate the NIMO because a single will of the NIMO could turn them into dust. However, they dared to hate Su Yu because Su Yu was an upright man who would never kill the innocent. Hence, they dared to hate him. Upon hearing this, Su Yu responded with indifference. The Tai East Emperor Bell's Tai Ching mystic Jade said angrily, "Bullshit. He is protecting the divine realm, but you bunch of people who are under his protection are not helping him? Instead, you blame him for attracting enemies? Do you think that the enemy won't appear if you keep tolerating them?" He comforted himself. How could such a foolish mentality appear in the hearts of so many gods? It's the biggest joke in the world. Tai Ching Mystic Jade was extremely angry, and said angrily, "Think about your recent situation, how Nitian Hanxing has trampled you like livestock, how you are struggling at death's door, how you can't even lift your heads in front of him. Women were taken by him by force, friends and relatives were killed by him for fun, and the resources that you have accumulated over the years were robbed. You are living a slave life that is worse than animals. Who killed this disaster and saved you? Is that you? Or you? Or you guys? None of them. It's Su Yu. Taiching Miaoyu looked down on them with contempt, even towards Bing Huat Sangxing. What qualifications do you have to suppress him? Just because you're weak, you can ask him to take responsibility for you? Her fierce and sarcastic words caused many living beings to be speechless. However, she had indeed angered the gods, and she rebuked, "Don't talk about other things. I only have one question for you. Was the inverse demon provoked by Su Yu?" Hee. Taiching Mystic Jade laughed out of anger. Looking at the pairs of eyes that only dared to be fierce to their own people but were as weak as dogs to the enemy, she felt extremely disgusted. What? You have nothing to say? If you have nothing to say, then please ask Senior Su Yu to give everyone an explanation. The creature hidden in the crowd said righteously. Yes, we want an explanation. If Su Yu does not give an explanation, the people of the God Realm will all curse him. He will be a sinner of the God Realm for all eternity. Taiching Miaoyu was trembling with anger. She felt that those friendly faces in the past had become abhorrent. She sneered. What explanation do you want? The living beings below were silent for a while, and then a fierce voice roared, Su Yu, kill yourself. Only then can you quench the anger of the inverse demon. Ha ha ha! Taiching Miaoyu trembled all over, not knowing whether she was angry or laughing. Taiching Yunhui also felt angry and sad. In the face of a catastrophe, the wisdom of the living beings was often stupid. Would the inverse demon let them go if they killed Su Yu? It was simply too stupid. Looking at Su Yu, who was suffering the condemnation of the living beings, Taiching Yunhui wanted to speak up for him. However, looking down at the living beings, she felt an inexplicable chill, and her heart was filled with fear. Her lips wriggled a few times, but in the end, she did not dare to defy the will of the people and plead for Su Yu. Only Taiching Miaoyu was not afraid of the tiger. She did not know where she got the courage to face the living beings. She was hateful and disappointed, and her face was incomparably cold. A bunch of stupid people. You can live and die on your own. As for you all hating him, cursing him, and writing him as a sinner of the ages in the history books, so what? Su Yu does not need to care about you stupid creatures. The ice and fire scripture and the Nitian Lingshan were also stirred up, and they rebuked the living beings with righteous indignation. However, what they got was an even stronger rebuttal from the living beings. The voices calling for Su Yu to be killed and to appease the emotions of the inverse demon grew stronger and stronger. The inverse demon, who was watching leisurely from the sidelines, had a mocking look in his eyes. Ha 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 ha! You're right. As long as Su Yu is dead, my rebellious will be smooth, and I will no longer destroy the God Realm. I can guarantee that. Hearing that, the living beings seemed to be grasping at the last life-saving straw, and their spirits were greatly shaken. Did you hear that? Su Yu, hurry up and atone for your sins with death. You are the one who caused the disaster, of course you have to be the one to resolve it. Kill yourself. What are you still hesitating for? It's all because of your power and prestige that you have harmed the common people. Why don't you kill yourself now? The voices of the living beings had reached an unprecedented height. The strength of the will forced the 8,000 Dharma idols behind Su Yu to emerge involuntarily. The divine light on their bodies flickered, as if they were bearing great pressure for Su Yu, and each of them had a painful look on their faces. Looking down at the living beings, Su Yu suddenly remembered the scene he saw when he passed by the mermaid tribe not long ago. The wisdom of the living beings was stupid, and there were always only a few people who were truly sober. Su Yu had always done things with a clear conscience. He could not sit back and watch the sinful lady destroy the world, so he ran around. He could not sit back and watch Niti and Hanxing trample on the world unscrupulously, so he drew his sword out of the mountain. However, how did he treat the common people, and how did the common people treat him? At this moment, Su Yu suddenly understood why so many ancient monsters had hearts as cold as iron. Did they not have the grand ideal of helping the world and helping all living beings when they were young? Perhaps they did, but some of them were abandoned by the common people. There was no sadness in his heart, but there was a hint of relief. A relaxed smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Well, I am just a seagull in the world, and naturally, I cannot bear the responsibility of saving the world. How can your fate be decided by me alone? His heart was freed, and Su Yu's mind was instantly clear as if it had been cleansed. Who needs you to save them? You atone for your sins with your death, and that is the greatest salvation for the world. Bah! You still have the cheek to laugh, why are you not dead yet? Su Yu's left eye gradually glowed with a wine-red luster, and he said lightly, I said, Mo, I will kill all of you. There is no need to atone for your sins with your death. Swish! Suddenly, the Mermaid Emperor's body was surrounded by a phantom of the space law chain. With a flash of light, the Mermaid Emperor was instantly teleported in front of Su Yu. Immediately afterward, a blood-red giant sword that was millions of feet long appeared in Su Yu's hand. The Azura sword, the ninth divine object of the Emperor-based Saint artifact, the Azura sword. The Mermaid Emperor was shocked and subconsciously dodged. However, at this moment, he realized that something seemed to be pulling him from behind. Turning his head, he saw that it was a long, rope-like black shadow. At the other end of the black shadow were the legs of the Nimo. It turned out that the Nimo had no legs, and he could only attach himself to a certain creature through the inverse will. The Mermaid Emperor's scalp went numb, and he immediately activated the mysterious divine power, trying to cut off the black shadow that entangled him and cut off the connection between him and the Nimo. However, even the 10,000-year-old heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword was helpless, let alone ordinary divine power. With a palm strike, the black shadow directly rebounded the divine power, and the Mermaid Emperor could do nothing about it. He, be my puppet obediently. The Nmo laughed mockingly, followed the black shadow, and quickly swept towards the Mermaid Emperor, trying to attach himself to him again. However, at this moment the Azura sword, which was full of boundless Azura aura, suddenly slashed down with destructive force. The Nmo suddenly let out a scream, and the black shadow was neatly cut by the Azura sword. Having lost its attachment, the Nmo fell from the sky like a deflated balloon, and the terrible inverse will rapidly weakened. The destructive flames that were burning the sky also stopped, and the sky began to repair itself. The disaster that was about to befall them was suddenly resolved. Everyone was stunned and extremely puzzled. That powerful Nmo, just like that, was knocked to the ground? The Nimo lay on the ground, and a black shadow extended from his legs, connecting to the nearest ordinary female cultivator. Following the black shadow, the Nimo immediately attached itself to her body. However, a flash of blood light flashed, and the black shadow was cut off. Another scream was heard, and the Nmo rolled and roared in pain on the ground, in extreme pain. However, he was like a drowning monster, constantly extending his black shadow, trying in vain to attach himself to certain creatures, but was cut off by the Azura sword again and again. Finally, everyone understood. The Nimo needed to attach himself to certain creatures in order to unleash its terrifying power. If there was no attachment, it would be extremely fragile. Ecstasy filled the hearts of everyone. Ha ha! It turns out that the Nimo is so easy to deal with. Haha, that's right, it was really a false alarm, and we scared ourselves. Phew! That's great, we're saved. They rejoiced that they looked harmless, the kindest, most peaceful, and ordinary creatures, as if the group of ugly faces that clamored for Su Yu to atone for their sins with death were someone else. Taiqing Yunhui was shocked. My king, what's going on? Taiqing Yunluan was also puzzled. I'm afraid we have to ask Su Yu. The Nimo tried several times to no avail. He raised his palm, and the eyes and mouth on his palm were full of hatred. How dare you ruin my plans? Su Yu stood on the Azura sword and stared at him indifferently. As expected, although you are strong, there are limits. The Nimo was not born out of thin air, but a product that existed in the human heart, similar to the inner demon. It could not exist independently, and could only attach itself to other creatures. Otherwise, it would be very weak and useless. Under normal circumstances, it would be born from the body of Nitian Hanxing, directly replacing his will, and hiding in his body. However, Su Yu killed Nitian Hanxing, and it was forced to choose other creatures to attach itself to. This was why, as soon as it appeared, it attached itself to the back of the Mermaid Emperor. Back then, the will of the heaven-defying divine warrior was more than half occupied by the Nimo, which was why the Nimo was so powerful and unpredictable. The stronger the body it attached itself to, the more terrifying the power it could exert. Fortunately, Su Yu killed Nitian Hanxing in time and destroyed his will. If it had attached itself to Nitian Hanxing, it would have been even more powerful. Of course, it was even more fortunate that Su Yu had the first sword of the Emperor-based Saint artifact, the Azura sword. Without this sword, perhaps no divine weapon could cut off its legs, and it could only watch as it continued to grow stronger. Holding the sword, Su Yu came in front of the Nimo, who was gradually weakening and on the verge of disappearing. He said lightly, "It seems that your appearance will soon come to an end. Wait quietly for the next Nimo to appear. By then, it would be hundreds of millions of years later." However, the eyes on the palm of the weak Nimo showed a hint of mockery. "I'm afraid I can't let you get what you want. There is still an unexpected expert hidden in the Taichu dynasty." Huh? Su Yu frowned, but his reaction was extremely quick. Without saying a word, the Azura sword slashed down and immediately killed the Nimo. The Nimo was also shocked and said angrily, "Why aren't you attacking?" Chapter 1555. "It's you." Su Yu frowned, and the murderous intent in his palm intensified. Although he had only heard that hoarse voice once, he would never mistake it for someone else. Yongye Chioma. Su Yu had never expected that Yongye Chioma, who had been severely injured by him, would be hiding in his old nest. The most dangerous place was also the safest place. Su Yu blamed himself for being too careless. Yongye Chioma was a man who was good at forbearance, scheming, and cunning. He would definitely find a place to hide and recuperate. His old nest, which was now the Taichu Empire, was obviously the best place. Even the Mermaid Emperor was slightly stunned. "You are the retired Emperor of the Empire of Darkness?" When he joined forces with the other two empires to attack the Empire of Darkness, he had sensed a strong aura disappearing. After interrogating some members of the Empire, he found out that it was most likely the retired Emperor who had died a long time ago. The Mermaid Emperor was shocked that the other party was hiding in the Taichu Empire. He had never expected that. Just as Su Yu was about to kill the Yongye Chioma, a mysterious force came from the depths of the earth. The Azura sword in Su Yu's palm was not listening to him and was about to break away from his control. The sword, which was supposed to be aimed at the Yongye Chioma, was affected by the force and slashed to the side, creating a 100-mile crack in the earth. Deep inside the crack, a misty glow was flickering, which contained traces of dragon power. Su Yu looked over and saw a whole group of people hiding in the depths of the earth. The leader was an old man with a pale face, holding a dragon pearl in his hand. The misty glow and the dragon power came from this dragon pearl. Behind him, there were several figures with dull expressions. Su Yu frowned slightly. Among the figures, there was one that he was very familiar with. Yongye Zhiyang. He had let him go back then, thinking that he would be free from Yongye Chioma's control. He did not expect that he would still fall into his hands. His eyes were dull. He must have been controlled and turned into a puppet. Yongye Zhiyang probably did not expect that Su Yu's heaven-splitting sword did not kill Yongye Chioma completely. However, Su Yu was slightly confused. Why did Yongye Zhiyang return to the Empire of Darkness after being freed? If not for that, he might not have been caught by the eternal Night Xioma who was hiding here. What a powerful sword spirit! It can actually resist my 6 fundamental laws of mind control. Yongye Xioma held the dragon pearl in his hand and looked surprised. He was the one who had used this technique just now, which had affected Su Yu's sword. Having narrowly escaped death, the inverse devil let out a shrill cry and rolled into the crevice, heading straight for Yongye Xioma. Yongye Xioma smiled faintly. Just as the black shadow was about to touch him, he used stellar transposition to move a puppet in front of him. The puppet was none other than Shangguan Feiyu, the former number 1 general of the empire. The inverse devil attached itself to his body and said unwillingly, "If you and I combine, we must destroy this brat." Yongye Xioma chuckled. "Even though I have the word Xioma in my name, I don't dare to let an inverse demon possess me. If you take my consciousness and replace it, I won't even have time to regret it." While they were talking, a fierce and terrifying sword energy suddenly shook the sky. 9 streaks of dark silver light scattered across the god realm. Yongye Xioma's expression changed, and he said with deep fear, "Let's leave first. We can't stay here for long." The inverse devil was also shocked. The number 1 sword technique of the demonic sword emperor's legacy, the Cosmos sword formation. Swish. He reacted faster than Yongye Xioma, and he immediately used Yongye Zhiyang's body to escape. However, Su Yu's sword formation had been completed, and he couldn't escape from it. Staring at the two of them coldly, Su Yu's sword formation shook, and the destructive energy became even more intense. "Su Yu, I won't let you get away with this!" Yongye Xioma bellowed. He pointed his finger deeper into the ground. All of a sudden, something seemed to have been triggered, and the ground of the entire Taichu Empire began to tremble. Waves of tumbling destructive energy boiled and roared in the depths of the ground, and they were about to erupt. Su Yu's expression changed slightly. His transparent eye pierced through the boundless earth and millions of miles into the depths of the ground. Thousands of weapons of civilization were hidden in the depths of the ground, and most of them were being built by Su Yu. The weapons of civilization that Su Yu was building came from the blueprints of the Empire of Darkness. Suddenly, Su Yu recalled that when he stayed in Shangguan Feiyu's mansion for a period of time, he sensed a wisp of energy leaked out from the depths of Shangguan Feiyu's mansion, which terrified him at that time. Wasn't the location of the weapons of civilization under the former site of Shangguan Feiyu's mansion? At that time, Su Yu's cultivation was too weak to detect it. It turned out that a batch of completed weapons of civilization were hidden in this place. Now, Su Yu finally understood why Yongye Zhiyang would let the civil official Grand Tutor Yuan seal the precious blueprints in the ice-sealed river. It wasn't because Yongye Zhiyang was stupid, but because he had already obtained all the weapons of civilization, and the blueprints were not important to him. What concerned Su Yu most was that among all the weapons of civilization, there was one that he had never seen before. It was a round ball with a diameter of 1,000 feet, which was carved with a mysterious material. It was crystal clear, and flickering lights were flickering in it. A shred of unfathomable danger continued to surge in Su Yu's heart. Needless to say, Su Yu knew that the round ball was about to explode. Heh. This is the third-ranked weapon of the ancient civilization, the explosive flames purgatory. Enjoy it slowly. Yongye Xioma laughed. Then, intense dragon energy gushed out from his body, which enveloped the inverse demon and Yongye Zhiyang. The next moment, the dragon energy dissipated, and their auras disappeared from the world. The divine dragon shell removal technique. At this moment, the crystal ball cracked open with a crack, and a wisp of purple-black flames burst out from it. Su Yu witnessed with his transparent eyes that the flames rushed up all the way. Wherever they passed, the ground was turned into scorching lava. In a moment, the entire capital of the Taichu Empire would be turned into a land of lava. However, this was just a wisp of purple-black flames. When all the crystal balls exploded, then, maybe half of the god realm would be destroyed. At least within the territory of the Taichu Empire, not even a blade of grass would grow. Unless one reached the level of a level 3 deity, he would not be able to escape death. Suyu looked at the remaining weak aura in the distance and frowned deeply. The divine dragon shell shedding technique was really a troublesome magical power. Withdrawing the sword formation, Suyu looked down at the panicking people below. Not only the ordinary creatures, but the deities who had not reached the level of level 3 were also panicking. When Taiqing Yunluan and Binghua Cangxing sensed that something was wrong, they had already used their portable cavern worlds to take in the people of their empire first, then the other creatures. Taiqing Yunhui, Dragon Elephant King, and the others also used their cavern worlds to transfer the creatures. However, there were so many creatures in the territory of the Taichu Empire that less than 10% of them had been transferred away. Seniors, please save us. Many of the creatures below were panicking. The power that was exploding underground day by day made them feel that their lives were in danger. Taiqing Yunluan and Binghua Cangxing shook their heads regretfully. I'm sorry, our cavern worlds are full. Please run for your lives. With their strength, they would not be able to escape far before they were killed by the erupting flames. Their words meant that they had given up on them. Closing their eyes slowly, Taiqing Yunluan and Binghua Cangxing immediately left this place. Taiqing Yunhui, Dragon Elephant King, and the others also looked regretful and quickly fled. This place was also full of danger for them. In the blink of an eye, the people of the two empires quickly evacuated. Only the Mermaid Emperor and his group of level 3 strong men were left. My king, save us! The creatures below could already feel the horror of the underground fire, and cried out in horror. The Mermaid Emperor looked down at them indifferently and said indifferently, Unfortunately, the cavern worlds have been filled with your blood essence. Let's go. He took their blood essence and left them behind. He was as cold as iron, extremely cold. Swish, swish. The Mermaid Emperor and the ministers of the Empire retreated one after another. Mermaid Emperor, you betrayed us. Some of the abandoned level 5 deities cried out unwillingly. I beg you, Mermaid Emperor, please take me away. I don't want to stay here. There were also pleading voices. Panic spread, boiling and fermenting into great despair. However, suddenly, someone discovered that the gods had abandoned them, and only one person was still there. It was Suyu. Senior Su, please save us. Yes, we are all the people of the God realm, a member of the common people. Do you really have the heart to watch us suffer? That's right. You've once helped countless lives. How could you just watch them die? Suyu remained silent, but Taiqing Mystic Jade could not stand it anymore. She pursed her lips, and her eyes were extremely contemptuous. Why can't I have the heart? Why can't I just watch them die? When you asked Suyu to atone for his sins with his death, how united were you? How selfish and indifferent were you? Why can't he just sit back and watch you die? What does he owe you? The ice and fire scripture also frowned deeply. Senior Su, we know that you are kind and righteous, and your reputation has spread far and wide. However, showing kindness to them is no different from a farmer to a snake. Senior Su, please don't mind them. Nutian Lingshan's eyes were also full of contempt. A group of pitiful and hateful ants. Their words, for people in despair, were tantamount to taking their lives. How could they not be angered? You three imbeciles, don't talk nonsense. We have always respected Senior Su. When did we ask him to atone for his sins with his death? A deity roared. Taiqing Mystic Jade's contempt deepened. He deeply remembered that the first person to ask Suyu to kill himself was him. Senior Su, please have mercy on us. We are all your people. If you really watch them die, Senior Su, will you be able to face your own conscience? Yes, if you really don't save us, you will definitely become a sinner for all eternity. Hearing this, Nitian Lingshan could not help but feel angry. Even now, he was still threatening them? There should be a limit to bullying. Why did they not dare to say this to the Mermaid Emperor, Taiqing Yunluan, and Bing Huatsangxing? Because they knew that those three beings were all indifferent beings with the blood of the common people. If they dared to threaten them, they would probably be killed immediately. Only Su Yu, who never killed the innocent, was known for his kindness and justice. No matter how they threatened them, Su Yu would never kill them. That was why they dared to threaten him. Senior Su, Taiqing Mystic Jade, and the Ice and Fire Scripture were furious. Su Yu's face was calm and he silently took out two things. One was the sacred sky warship, and the other was the world annihilation plate that was 10 times larger. The former could contain a cavern world, and the latter could contain 10 cavern worlds. Added together, it could take away nearly 80% of the creatures in the Taichu dynasty. The appearance of the two objects drew cheers. Long live Senior Su! Ha ha, we are saved. I will definitely be grateful for Senior Su's kindness. The creatures were extremely excited, and they gathered around the two objects. Seeing this scene, Taiqing Yunluan was so angry that he could not speak. He gritted his teeth, but did not dare to attack. Chapter 1556. Why was he so pedantic? Had he forgotten how the people had turned their backs on him when the defiant demon destroyed the world and asked him to atone for his sins with his death? Had he forgotten how cold and heartless those people were, like maggots feasting on Su Yu's blood? Why did he still want to save such a person? Taiqing Miaoyu was extremely disappointed. Su Yu used to be an unattainable legend in her eyes. Every word and action of his was fascinating. But seeing Su Yu's ridiculous actions with her own eyes, her yearning collapsed in an instant. However, at that moment there was a complaint from the people again. Open the portal quickly! The crisis at the core is coming. Senior Su, why are you still closing the portal? Taiqing Miaoyu opened her eyes and found that although Su Yu had taken out the two items, he had not opened them at all. Instead, he was looking at the people indifferently, as if he was looking for something. After a while, Su Yu pointed with his fingertip. Among the people who had gathered around, 20 to 30% of them had a conspicuous halo appear above their heads, like some kind of mark. Anyone with a mark can enter. Those who don't, fend for themselves. Su Yu spoke for the first time, his eyes full of indifference. At that moment, he opened the portal between the sacred sky warship and the replica of the world annihilation plate. However, the portal was not open to the public at the moment. It was controlled internally. Whoever the portal shone on would be sucked into it. The two items operated at the same time. Tens of millions of spatial teleportation lights swept across the endless, densely packed creatures. Anyone with a mark was immediately taken away. Those without a mark, even if the beam of light accidentally swept across them, showed no signs of being teleported and remained in place. In the blink of an eye, more than hundreds of millions of people had been teleported into the two items. At that moment, the reporters without a mark began to panic. Senior Su, why don't I have a mark? This is not fair. Why does he have a mark and I don't? Yes. This is not fair. We want to go in too. Su Yu glanced at them coldly and said lightly, the reporters with a mark are those who have never asked me to die as an apology. Even if they thought about it, as long as they didn't say it out loud, I still gave them a mark. That is already merciful. As for you, it's not that I don't want to, but I can't save you. I don't want to be asked to die by a group of people I've saved the next time I encounter a disaster. The merciless words fiercely bombarded their hearts. Many people's expressions changed, but there was still a God who protested. I didn't say that. Why didn't you mark me? Su Yu glanced at him and waved his hand casually. An image appeared in the air. It was the image of countless people begging Su Yu to atone for his sins with his death. There were so many of them that they were like a swarm of ants. Then, the image zoomed in, and the figure of a man, who was screaming at the top of his lungs and asking for Su Yu's death, appeared clearly. It was the quibbling deity. The god's face paled, and he was speechless. Su Yu swiped at the light screen and calmly asked, "Who else feels wronged?" With that image in front of them, who could quibble? They hadn't expected Su Yu to have recorded the entire scene clearly. At this moment it was too late for them to deny it. But, even if that's the case, you can't just leave him to die. They were still unconvinced and protested. Su Yu crossed his arms in front of his chest. "I didn't leave him to die. I just saved those who deserved to be saved. Obviously, you belong to the category of people who don't deserve to be saved." While he was speaking, the transmission light beam had already swept through the crowd and absorbed all the marked creatures. "Okay, that's all I have to say. You're on your own now." Su Yu waved his sleeves and put away the sacred sky ship and the world annihilation plate. At the same time, he waved his sleeves and took Taiching Mystic Jade and the other two people away. Finally, they felt a great sense of panic. "Senior Su, I beg you to save us. I was wrong, I shouldn't have insulted you, I shouldn't have forced you to die. I beg you to spare me this time, please save me." At this moment they regretted it. All the powerful deities in the world regarded them like ants. Only Su Yu pitied the common people, sympathized with them, and helped them. However, what did they do? They were humble and obedient to those powerful deities who despised them, but they had no respect for Su Yu, who respected them. They even asked him to die. In the end, Su Yu, the only person who pitied them, also abandoned them. They had only themselves to blame for everything. They had asked for it. Su Yu turned his back to the common people, his eyes calm as he turned into a breeze and left. Betrayal once was enough. Soon, the flame broke through the ground and turned the mermaid emperor into a sea of fire. Countless creatures, in remorse and pain, were buried in the raging fire, falling into the eternal purgatory of explosive flames. Immediately afterward, the crystal ball deep underground completely shattered, and countless raging flames erupted, rushing out of the earth and into the sky. Flames splashed everywhere, radiating throughout the Taichu Empire. In an instant, the Taichu Empire was turned into a pool of magma. Under the destruction of the magma, the mountains and the earth melted, including the mysterious crystal mountains that stretched across the southern part of the empire. Back then, the world annihilation plate had flattened it, but now it had completely melted into liquid magma. However, under the magma there was a stone tablet. The flames could not do anything to it, so it poked out of the magma. The head of a ferocious giant dragon with dark red eyes also poked out of the magma. The giant dragon's dark red blood eyes looked around at the clear sky and sighed. "It's been a long time." On its head, a bloody mark was faintly visible. The bloody mark was blurred and about to disappear. Correspondingly, on the stone tablet, the characters of the heavenly book were getting brighter and brighter. They were like meteors falling into the sky, emitting their last ray of brilliance. When the brilliance disappeared, what awaited them would be silent darkness. "I can finally use some of my strength. That ant who stole my fragment of the law, I will play with you for a while." The black horn on the head of the giant dragon suddenly broke off and fell to the ground, turning into a black-robed old man. His face was long and pointed, and his eyes were sharp and sharp. Between his black hair, two dragon horns the size of a thumb were hidden. "Go and see how many enemies there are in the god realm today," the giant dragon said indifferently, and his head slowly sank into the depths of the magma. The pointy-faced old man cast his eyes into the distance indifferently and murmured, "The fragment of the law? Haha, it's time to get it back." The border between the Taichu Empire and the Taichu Empire. Taiching Yunluan, Binghua Tsangxing, and the Mermaid Emperor met here one after another. They looked at the sky full of flames, shocked. The exploding flames purgatory. The Empire of Darkness really hid it well. If Nitian Guyun was still alive, He would not dare to touch the Empire of Darkness even if he knew about it. Binghua Sangxing's eyes were trembling. To destroy an empire in a few breaths, such a great killing weapon that could destroy everything, how terrifying was it? Taiqing Yunluan was also shocked. This thing is definitely not prepared for Nitian Gyun, but to deal with some kind of existence. She was half right. This thing was indeed not prepared for Nitian Gyun. Yongye Chioma could kill Nitian Gyun effortlessly. It was prepared for the epoch-making dragon, in case one day the epoch-making dragon broke free and came to him for revenge. Unfortunately, it had never been put to use. Until today, when it completely broke out and destroyed the empire passed down by his ancestor. Wait. Suyu. Oh, where is Senior Su? Why hasn't he come back? After a brief moment of palpitation, Taiqing Yunhui immediately realized that Suyu did not exist. What was strange was that the faces of Taiqing Yunluan and the other two were gloomy and strange. They were not worried about Suyu's life or death, but they were embarrassed by their situation. If they remembered correctly, Suyu was still a joint-wanted target of the four empires. And the performance of the Mermaid Emperor just now was too cold-blooded and ruthless. Swoosh! A rapid sonic boom rang out, and from a distance, Suyu could be seen flying over the sea of fire. The three of them had different expressions. Among them, Taiqing Yunluan and Binghua Sangxing, after hesitating for a moment, stepped forward to greet him, bowed and said, "Greetings, Senior Su." The way they addressed him made them feel very uncomfortable. Back then, only 8 years ago, Suyu was like an insignificant speck of dust in front of them. After today, they had to address him as senior. Suyu accepted it calmly and nodded. "Get up." At that moment, a beautiful figure came over and bowed. "I am Taiqing Yunhui, greetings, Senior Su." Suyu glanced at her and nodded with a calm expression, not paying much attention to her. Taiqing Yunhui bit her lip and said, "On behalf of the many members of the Taiqing royal family, I thank Senior Su for killing the evil Nitian Hanxing." After saying that, she bowed and kowtowed. Suyu did not stop her. He let her finish bowing and ignored her. Instead, he released Taiqing Miaoyu and the others and said, "Now that you are safe, you may return to your elders." Taiqing Miaoyu's eyes darted around, and she smiled and stretched out her hand. "Before we part, don't you want to give me some rewards? I heard that Senior Su was rich many years ago, and I don't know how many treasures you have plundered." Hearing that, Taiqing Yunluan was shocked and almost scared to death. She hurriedly scolded, "How dare you?" There were not many people in the world who dared to ask Suyu for things. As strong as Nitian Hanxing was, he had asked for women. What happened to him had just happened. Unexpectedly, Suyu laughed self-deprecatingly. "I am stingy. Since it is fate that we meet, it is good to give you 3 something." As he spoke, a green light flashed in his palm, and 3 heavenly orchid silver bamboo seedlings appeared, as well as 2 stones with demonic energy rolling around them. "These are the 2 books of swordsmanship that I practiced in the past, and 3 seedlings that I cultivated with my own hand. Take them." Suyu flicked his fingers, and they flew towards the 3 of them. Taiqing Miaoyu grabbed one and wrinkled her nose. "Stingy." Taiqing Yunluan, who was at the side, took one look and her pretty face changed dramatically. The inherited swordsmanship of the demon sword divine warrior, the 9 suns cosmos sword formation, and the extinct heavenly orchid silver bamboo seedlings? She snatched the item from Taiqing Miaoyu's palm and returned it with both hands. "Senior Su, I have no virtue or ability. How can I accept such a great gift? Senior Su, please take it back." Hearing that it was this item, Binghua Sangxing was really shocked. He took it and returned it with both hands. At that moment, Taiqing Miaoyu realized that what Suyu had given her was the famous inheritance of the demon sword divine warrior. She had asked for it casually. How could she have known that Suyu would give such an important reward? She explained uneasily, "Senior Su, I was just joking. I can't accept such a precious thing." Chapter 1557. Taiqing Yunluan hurriedly said, I dare not. Binghua Sangxing also hurriedly explained, for fear of angering Su Yu. Then why don't you return it to them? Su Yu stared at the two of them. They trembled and returned it to the two juniors with a bitter smile. Taiqing Miaoyu did not dare to accept it. She hesitantly looked at Taiqing Yunluan, then at Su Yu, longing and uneasy. Su Yu cast a comforting look. If the Demon Sword Emperor learns that I passed on his swordsmanship, he will not blame me. You three concentrate on your cultivation, and with the help of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo seedlings, I hope I can see the legacy of the Demon Sword Emperor spread in tens of millions of years. Only then did Taiqing Miaoyu put it away excitedly. Taiqing Yunluan looked at her, then at Taiqing Yunhui, who was kneeling, and sighed. The heir of the Taiqing dynasty, if nothing went wrong, should be Taiqing Yunhui, the current eldest princess. But now she had to reconsider. Taiqing Miaoyu, who had received the legacy of the Demon Sword Emperor, would have limitless achievements in the future. Moreover, with Su Yu's support, she had to think more carefully. The Taiqing mystic Jade was originally not an outstanding junior among the juniors. The best outcome was a life of eating and waiting for death. But after getting to know Su Yu, she changed her fate in just one day. Sometimes, people have to believe in fate and fate. Taiqing Yunluan thought silently. In that case, I hope to see you three again. Su Yu cupped his fists and immediately looked at the Mermaid Emperor, Taiqing Yunluan, and Binghua Sangxing. The three of them understood and nodded. Nitian Hanxing was dead, and they needed to rediscuss how to obtain the blood of the common people. Senior Su. A gaze filled with resentment shot toward Su Yu. Turning his head, it was Taiqing Yunhui, who was still kneeling on the ground. She was as beautiful as a dream, and her cold face was full of grievance and unwillingness. What's the matter? Su Yu looked at her, a little puzzled. Taiqing Yunhui looked at the joyful Taiqing Miaoyu, and the unwillingness in her heart grew stronger. She bit her lip and said, Senior Su, Yunhui once made a solemn vow that if anyone could kill or severely injure Nitian Hanxing and avenge my sister, Yunhui would marry him. Now that Senior Su has killed him, Yunhui is willing to fulfill her promise and marry Senior Su. As soon as these words came out, everyone's expression became strange. Even the emperors of the three countries had heard about this. What he did not expect was that Taiqing Yunhui would take the initiative to mention that she was willing to fulfill her promise and marry Su Yu. The question was, would Su Yu be willing? Was she worthy of Su Yu? One was an ordinary prodigy, while the other was an ancient overlord. The difference between the two was too great. Su Yu was slightly startled, but he quickly replied, I'm sorry, I have no intention of taking a wife. The answer was as expected, but it still caused Taiqing Yunhui's face to turn pale, and she bit her lips tightly. Just as Su Yu was about to leave, she raised her head, her eyes filled with tears of grievance. She said in a deep voice, Senior Su, may I ask, in what way am I inferior to Taiqing Miaoyu? The yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole control technique that Senior Su wanted was given to him by me, not Taiqing Miaoyu. The one who respects Senior Su is me, Taiqing Yunhui, and not Taiqing Miaoyu, who is ignorant and disrespectful. All these years, it is me, Taiqing Yunhui, who has kept my chastity for Senior Su, not her. She stared at Taiqing Miaoyu fiercely. Pointing at her, she said, why does Senior Su love her so much, but treat me so coldly? Is she as beautiful as me? Or is she more talented than me? Or is she more intelligent than me? Why does Senior Su love her, but treat me with disdain? This was the extreme indignation in her heart, and there were even hints of resentment. Taiqing Miaoyu clenched her fists. Looking directly at Taiqing Yunhui, who was like a snow goddess, she felt ashamed of her inferiority. Yes, in terms of appearance she was far inferior, and in terms of talent she was also inferior. In terms of mental agility she was also inferior. Logically speaking, An expert like Senior Su should be more attracted to Uncle Master. Senior Su, I don't want to have a conflict with Uncle Master. I'll return these inheritances to you. Taiching Miaoyu fought with heaven for a long time, and quickly made a choice to return the inheritances. Unfortunately, not only was her action not moved by Taiching Yunhui, but she was even colder and more disdainful. She fiercely said, "Stop putting on an act." "I didn't." Taiching Miaoyu was stunned. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she felt greatly wronged. Uncle Master really couldn't tell that you, who looked innocent and romantic, was the most scheming one among the members of the imperial family. Taiching Yunhui stared at her coldly and said, "You actually used sweet words to get Senior Su's good impression and stepped on me. You got what you wanted, you got what you wanted. Are you satisfied?" Taiching Yunhui's tone was fierce. At this moment, she didn't seem like a fairy who didn't eat the food of the mortal world. She only looked like a jealous woman. "I didn't." Taiching Miaoyu felt sad and wronged, and tears rolled down her cheeks. Suyu sighed and patted her on the shoulder. Imbued with wisps of soul energy, he soothed her fluctuating emotions and said, "I'm sorry, I've caused you unnecessary trouble." He looked at Taiching Yunhui, looked her up and down, and said slowly, "Why do you think I have a reason to love you? Are we familiar with each other?" Taiching Yunhui shook her head. "Today is the first time we've met, but it's also the first time Senior Su and Taiching Miaoyu have met. Why can she get it, but I can't get anything? You and I are just strangers who met by chance, and I can't find a reason to love you. Is it because you are beautiful? So it's only natural? Regardless of what I think about looks, in terms of looks, Taiching Yunluan here is above you. If I love someone, it's her." Taiching Yunluan, who was watching from the side, was stunned, a little embarrassed and unnatural. What made her even more uncomfortable was that Binghua Songxing and the Mermaid Emperor were looking at her strangely, as if asking if there was anything between her and Su Yu. Taiching Yunluan's face was slightly red, and she felt helpless. If an ordinary person dared to say such misleading words, she would have slapped him to protect her pure image. But Su Yu, did she dare? Even if he teased her on the spot, she could only smile and bear it. Taiching Yunhui shook her head calmly. "Then what is the reason for your love for Taiching Miaoyu? How am I inferior to her?" In her heart, Taiching Miaoyu was just an inconspicuous junior, and she could scold her at any time. But now, she was stepping on her head, which made her very indignant. "The reason is very simple." Su Yu smiled and touched Miaoyu's head. "Because when the people turned their backs on me, she was the only one who was willing to fight for justice for me. She was the only one who was willing to stand by my side and bear the disdain of the people. Is this reason enough?" Taiching Yunluan suddenly understood. No wonder Su Yu loved her, the ice and fire scripture, and Nitian Lingshan so much. At that time, the three of them were on Su Yu's side. Taiching Miaoyu even mustered up the courage to confront the people. Presumably, it was this that moved Su Yu. Otherwise, how could Su Yu be willing to pass on the sword techniques of the Demon Sword Emperor? Hearing that, Taiching Yunhui shuddered. The question was like a needle, piercing the deepest part of her heart. She clearly remembered what she had done when Su Yu had been abandoned by all living beings. She sympathized with Su Yu and wanted to cry out for him. But her actions were silent. She did nothing. Taiching Miaoyu, a junior who was inferior to her, rebuked the people and argued for Su Yu. She was at a loss for a moment, then sat down on the ground. Her face was filled with bitterness, self-mockery, and cynicism. She finally understood where she was inferior to Taiching Miaoyu. That was sincerity. "Is there anything else you want to ask?" Su Yu asked calmly. Taiching Yunhui did not have the courage to look directly into Su Yu's eyes. She bowed her head in shame. "I was possessed, please forgive me, Senior Su." Nodding, Su Yu and the three emperors came to a mountain in a flash. The four of them sat facing each other, with Su Yu in the middle, looking like the leader. Suyu grabbed with one hand and a storage ring fell into the void. It was Nitian Hanxing's storage ring. The Mermaid Emperor's eyes flashed, and he found the Brahma puppet in it. He breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was not damaged. After thinking about it, the Mermaid Emperor handed the puppet to Suyu. It will be kept by Senior Su. He called Suyu Senior reluctantly. Taiqing Yunluan and Binghua Sangxing were delighted to hear that. It was more reassuring to hand it over to Suyu than to hand it over to the Mermaid Emperor. However, Suyu shook his head. Since this belongs to the Mermaid Emperor, he should be in charge of it. In the face of a disaster, I believe that no matter who it is given to, they will try their best to make use of it, and there should be no suspicion. Now, what we need to discuss is gathering the blood of the people. Taiqing Yunluan said, Senior Su, rest assured, before this, we have reached an agreement to collect the blood of all people, water the Brahma puppet, and kill the evil woman. I will pass on the order to gather all the people in the Taiqing Empire to contribute their blood. I will pass on the order immediately, Binghua Sangxing said. Suyu nodded with satisfaction. That couldn't be better. When it was the Mermaid Emperor's turn, he smiled and took out several cavern worlds. Suyu glanced at them and saw that they were all the blood of all people. Recalling his indifference to the people's pleas for help when the earth fire destroyed the world, Suyu's eyes flashed with a few rays of light. Only the heaven-defying empire is left, Suyu said with a frown. Taiqing Yunluan said, Senior Su, rest assured that the people of the heaven-defying empire are also suffering under Nitian Hanxing. If you can kill him, the people of the heaven-defying empire will be grateful. If you give the order, I believe it will be very easy. Is that so? Suyu nodded slightly and with a wave of his sleeves, the Yongye siblings, Luoxue, and the tree goddess flew out. Then, Suyu wrote a summons in the air with his will and handed it to the three of them. Please go to the heaven-defying empire and prepare enough space storage devices. They were already aware of this matter and immediately took the order and left. Just wait for the Moonwatch sect leader and the three of them to bring back the rest of the blood of the people, Suyu said expectantly. Taiqing Yunluan's face was full of joy and he heaved a long sigh of relief. This matter has finally been settled. The only pity is that we have let the NMO and Yongye Chioma escape today. Those two creatures are a disaster after all. Binghua Sangxing's eyes were filled with deep fear. He still had lingering fear when the NIMO destroyed the world. The oppressive aura that Yongye Chioma exuded made him deeply uneasy. The Mermaid Emperor's brows were deeply furrowed, and he let out a long sigh. It's a pity that all our efforts have been wasted. If Yongye Chioma hadn't appeared out of nowhere, the NIMO wouldn't have been a big problem. If we let him go now, there will be endless trouble in the future. His words were still vaguely blaming Suyu. However, right at this moment, a long laugh suddenly came from the void. You can do whatever you want, but you can't escape from the evil you bring upon yourself. Everyone, who knows if Yongye Chioma is digging his own grave? Chapter 1558. The Mermaid Emperor's eyes were sharp, and he grabbed at the void on the side. Sneaky! Come out! However, he grabbed nothing, which surprised the Mermaid Emperor. Is this the law of space? Taiqing Yunluan narrowed her eyes and tried to make a move. She had clearly locked on to the other party, but when she attacked, the other party disappeared without a trace. The same was true for Binghua Sangxing. It was as if the other party could change his position at will in space, which was unpredictable. Suyu was the only one who was surprised. He casually tapped a spot 30 feet away from his side, and a figure that was hiding in the void suddenly appeared. The figure staggered a few steps in a sorry state. He was not annoyed but laughed and said, "You are the best. You caught me again." Everyone looked at it and saw that it was a rat-headed man. After appearing, he swaggered and sat down, not taking anyone in his eyes. The Mermaid Emperor's eyes were cold. "How dare you?" He immediately made a move and struck with a mysterious palm. The rat-headed man laughed and let the palm hit him. As a result, the palm that should have hit him suddenly disappeared, as if it was swallowed by an invisible space crack. Then, 3 inches behind the Mermaid Emperor, the missing palm suddenly appeared and hit him on the back. The Mermaid Emperor's body was special. After being injured, it did not affect him at all, and he did not even feel the slightest pain. It was just that he was angered. "You are courting death." The Mermaid Emperor suddenly stood up, his aura extremely fierce. "Hee, who is afraid of you?" The rat-headed man laughed, unafraid. Su Yu said lightly, "You too, this is not a place to quarrel." Only then did the two of them calm down. During this time, Tai-Ching Yunluan had been looking at the rat-headed man, her eyebrows furrowed as if she was thinking about something. After a long while, she suddenly remembered something and said, "You are the world's top thief, Banyue?" Binghua Tsangxing looked at the rat-headed man in surprise and said, "I have only heard of his name, but have never seen him. Rumor has it that he is the descendant of the Tongtian overlord. There is nothing in the world that he cannot steal. It is said that he once sneaked into Nitian Guyun's side and stole his personal magic weapon. Nitian Guyun was so angry that he chased him for 10 years, but he failed to kill him." "Ha ha ha!" Banyue looked up to the sky and laughed. Listen to his boasting? 10 years of pursuit? He was obviously trapped by me for 10 years, and he still has the nerve to brag that he hunted me for 10 years. What? Trap Nitian Guyun for 10 years? Everyone was shocked. Only Su Yu was not surprised. If he was really proficient in the law of space, with some special terrains, formations and so on, it was not impossible to trap Nitian Guyun for 10 years. "You didn't come looking for me because you still want the Tai East Emperor Bell, did you?" Su Yu asked. Half Moon chuckled, "That'll have to wait until I'm alive enough to escape from you." Su Yu smiled but did not speak. "Then what are you here for?" The Half Moon deity said mysteriously, "I have a big gift for everyone." The Mermaid Emperor sneered, "What big gift can you give?" Although Tai-Ching Yunluan and Binghua Tsangxing didn't say anything, they didn't mind. With their vision and the current situation in the God territory, they were not as interested in Emperor-based saint weapons that were ranked in the top 20 as they were in the past. Take a look and you'll know." Half Moon took out a small black bag with a smile. The bag was filled with something that looked heavy and round. He threw the black bag in front of Su Yu and laughed. "The thing has been delivered, and the favor of saving my life has been repaid." Outside the Imperial City, it was Su Yu who had pleaded for Half Moon's life. Su Yu smiled and let him go. He didn't expect that his kindness would cause Half Moon to return the favor. Although Su Yu didn't think that he could give him anything valuable, the nature of returning favors was quite to Su Yu's liking. "No matter what it is, it's worth saving," Su Yu said to himself and poured out the thing in the black bag. Pitter-patter. As a result, a misty ball rolled out. It exuded a very strange light and power. Tai-Ching Yunluan, Binghua Tsangxing, and the Mermaid Emperor were a little surprised and said, "Isn't this the ball in Yongye Chuma's hand? What is this?" Tai-Ching Yunluan was curious and wanted to touch it. "Don't touch it!" But Su Yu scolded, startling Tai-Ching Yunluan and causing her to retract her hand immediately. When she looked at Su Yu's expression, Tai-Ching Yunluan was even more confused. At this moment, Su Yu's expression was very interesting. There was surprise, agitation, and excitement. Then, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, what a great gift! Yongye Chuma, you didn't expect this, did you?" The crystal ball was none other than the epoch-making dragon's dragon pearl. Half Moon had used some unknown means to steal the most precious treasure that Yongye Chuma valued so much, right under his nose. Recalling how Half Moon had stolen the Tai Eastern Emperor Bell from Su Yu's sleeves without anyone noticing, Su Yu felt that it was unimaginable. "In the end, I still underestimated the bloodline of the all-reaching overlord. With such a weak cultivation, your ability to steal is so terrifying. It wasn't hard to imagine that Yongye must have hidden the dragon pearl in the most hidden and safest place on his body, but it still couldn't escape the heavenly mouse's eyes. That alone made him worthy of the title of the number one godly thief in the god realm. Tai Qin Yunluan asked curiously, "Is this pearl very important to Yongye? Su Yu still had an inexplicable smile on his face. "It's more than important. You could say it's his life." Suddenly, Su Yu recalled Half Moon's laughter and couldn't help but smile sympathetically. "I'm afraid we'll have to say goodbye to Yongye forever. You really brought this upon yourself." At the end of the endless mountain range, Yongye appeared on the deserted mountain peak. At the same time, the inverse demon attached to Shangguan Feiyu's body appeared. "If you agree to merge with us, the creature with the surname Su is nothing to me. I can kill him with a single thought," the inverse demon said indignantly. Yongye smiled with his hands behind his back. "Then you can take over my consciousness? I'm not that stupid. Then why did you save me?" The inverse demon's eyes flickered with vigilance. Yongye said with a faint smile, "Of course, I have a reason for saving you. You don't think I'll take the risk to be kind to a ferocious creature, do you?" As soon as he finished speaking, Yongye took action abruptly and sucked Yongye towards him. Then, a tentacle that had reached Yongye back was exposed. It turned out the inverse demon tried to attach himself to Yongye body while they were talking. Shangguan Feiyu's cultivation was much lower than Yongye. Therefore, the inverse demon couldn't exert his full strength. However, the cunning Yongye saw through his plan. "Humph! Inverse demon, do you still want to turn over a new leaf now that you are in my hands? Just be my spiritual pet." Yongye expression changed as he sneered several times. The inverse demon laughed. "You want me to be your spiritual pet? Ha ha ha! Dream on. Even if this body is not good enough, you are not qualified to control me." After saying that, he turned around and ran away. With the inverse demon, he could run away in the blink of an eye. Yongye said sarcastically, "You don't think I'm stupid enough to give you a body, do you?" "What?" The inverse demon's heart skipped a beat. Before he could react, Shangguan Feiyu's body exploded from the inside out. Both his body and soul were destroyed. The inverse demon, who had just been attached to, lost his body in the blink of an eye. Then, he turned into a weak black shadow. Lying on the ground, he struggled and became weaker quickly. Yongye flew over with great joy on his face. "I wanted to hide in the Empire to heal my wounds. I didn't expect to meet the inverse demon here. Most importantly, he is still in a weak state. I really have to thank Su Yu. Ha ha ha." At this time, the inverse demon stretched out his legs and tried to entangle him. However, when his tentacles were 3 inches away from the inverse demon's body, they were bounced back by an intense dragon power. Yongye laughed coldly. "You still want to attach yourself to me? Humph, humph, be a spiritual pet of this old man." Heh. Yongye took a deep breath and released part of the dragon power in his body. The dragon power condensed into shackles and bound the inverse demon. The inverse demon tried to break through the shackles of the dragon power, but strangely, he couldn't. "Haha, this is the epic-making dragon power of the epic-making dragon. It's not an ordinary dragon power. Although I can only mobilize 1/10,000th of it, it's enough to suppress you for eternity. As long as the Dragon Ball is still in my hands, you won't have to give in." Yongye laughed loudly. The inverse demon stared at Yongye with hatred and slowly closed his eyes, waiting for an opportunity to escape. On the other side, a sharp scream suddenly came from the Star River God realm, which had been silent for a long time. "Ha ha! The body of 9 gods is finally complete." His wild laughter shook the 4 realms of the Star River. At the same time, 9 savage auras from the wilderness swept through time and space. "Su Yu! You didn't expect this, did you? I, Gu Taishu, am not fated to die. Just you wait. A month later, the Moonwatch sect master and the 3 people who went to the heaven-defying empire returned one after another, bringing back the blood of all living beings. Hundreds of cavern worlds were filled with the blood of all living beings. The Mermaid Emperor was pleasantly surprised. He took out the heaven-burning puppet that had been soaked for a month. Before this, the blood of all living beings of the Taichu Empire had been poured into the Brahma puppet. There was a slight change on the surface of its body, and there was an additional will. The will was almost tangible, and it contained great lethality. In the past, the Brahma puppet was only equivalent to the combat power of a level 2 deity. But at this moment it was vaguely qualified to compete with a level 1 deity. And this was just the beginning. Looking at the blood pools of 100 cavern worlds, the Mermaid Emperor's eyes were full of anticipation and excitement. After absorbing the blood of all living beings, it will be the doomsday of the sinful woman. The Moonwatch sect master stared at the Mermaid Emperor and frowned deeply. His intuition told him that the Mermaid Emperor was very dangerous. Where is Su Yu? He looked around, but Su Yu was nowhere to be seen. Taiching Yunawan's eyes turned to a mountain in the distance. He has been training in seclusion at the bottom of the mountain for a whole month. As soon as he finished speaking, the mountain suddenly collapsed, and the crevice shone brightly. A rotating snow-white shadow of light circled out from the bottom of the mountain, emitting an unparalleled sharpness. The Mermaid Emperor's expression froze, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. In just a month, he has cultivated the World Annihilation Plate control technique to the extreme? Should I be happy or worried? Chapter 1559. Then, from the crumbling mountain, rich yin and yang energies gushed out. The two energies intertwined and converged into a chaotic land of yin and yang, restoring the crumbling mountain to its original state. Yin and yang are so chaotic that time and space are reversed? Taiching Yunluan was most familiar with the yin and yang energies. Seeing this scene, she couldn't help but exclaim, "What kind of divine technique is he cultivating?" The Moonwatch sect master's pupils constricted, and he said, "It's the sky-splitting yin and yang style, yin and yang reverse chaos." At first, Su Yu had only scratched the surface of it, but now he had truly mastered it. Suddenly, a young man with a crown on his head walked out of the restored mountain. What was incredible was that he went straight through the mountain as if his body was nothing. However, upon closer inspection, he was clearly a physical entity. The Moonwatch sect master was shocked. It really is the yin and yang reverse chaos. He can transform between yin and yang at any time, and even temporarily affect the operation of time and space. But how could he comprehend it to such an extent in just a few years? Su Yu leaped out and said, "Everyone is here. Is everything ready?" Everyone nodded. "Everything is just waiting for the Brahma puppets to finish watering, and then we will enter the ancient tomb." The Mermaid Emperor was full of confidence. Senior Su, you have come out of seclusion." Taiching Miaoyu ran over energetically and handed over a few invitations with a smile. Right now, the living beings of the Lost Nation have gathered in the Divine Realm and are preparing to gather in my Taiching dynasty. Right now, there are several meetings being held in the dynasty, such as competitions and auctions. Many of the organizers of the meetings want to invite Senior Su to come and support them. Here, this is the invitation. Su Yu glanced at them and shook his head with a smile. "I can't spare the time to accept them, so I can only apologize." The Moonwatch sect master said, "You can refuse the ordinary meetings, but you'd better attend the competition. Of course, you will be watching the battles as a distinguished guest." In a flash, Su Yu understood the Moonwatch sect master's intention. The war was approaching and people were restless. They urgently needed to inspire the courage of all living beings. The more strong people there were, the more determined they were to fight. It was reasonable to hold a grand competition. If Su Yu was willing to attend, the influence of the competition would expand several times. After pondering for a moment, Su Yu nodded. All right, I'll participate. If the three monarchs have nothing else to do, you can come along as well. Tai Qin Yunluan and Binghua Songxing were naturally willing, but the mermaid emperor refused, saying that he still needed to water the Brahma puppets himself. All right, I'll go back and prepare first. I'll definitely be there when the time comes. As the host, the Tai Qin Yunluan naturally had to make meticulous preparations. Binghua Songxing thought for a moment and said, I also have to go back to the royal family. There are still some inheritance wall carvings left by the ancestors that I need to deal with personally. Su Yu nodded. The legacy of an empire was, after all, enormous. Hence, it needed to be dealt with seriously. After bidding farewell to Su Yu, Bing, Hua, Song, and Zing 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 Zin at the empty palace, Bing Hua Songxing's heart felt empty. He sighed sadly. I wonder how many people will survive this calamity. Sighing, Bing Hua Songxing teleported into the most heavily restricted forbidden area in the palace. The restrictions here had been passed down from the era of the divine warriors of heaven and earth. After billions of years, they were still in operation. Although the restriction had lost 99% of its power, no one could break in. Even if it was Su Yu, Bing Hua Songxing believed that it was impossible for him to break in. He opened the restriction and entered the forbidden area. This place was called the Holy Palace of the Wall Carvings. There were many inheritances left behind by the ice and fire divine warriors, all of which were engraved on the stone wall. For many years, only the emperors of the past were qualified to enter. Other creatures, if they entered, would be executed, no matter who they were, not even the prince who was about to succeed the throne. However, when Bing Hua Songxing entered, he was horrified to find that in front of the stone wall there was an old man in a black robe. He turned his back to Bing Hua Songxing and looked at the wall carvings very leisurely. At this moment, he did not look back and said, I didn't expect that the ice and fire divine warriors would also have inheritances left behind. Unfortunately, the descendants were useless and did not inherit his inheritance. Bing Hua Songxing said angrily, Who are you? How did you get in? For some reason, Bing Hua Songxing looked at the back of the other party and felt a sense of horror. The old man turned his head, revealing an old face and a black dragon horn that was faintly discernible on top of his head. He said indifferently, If your ancestor was still alive, he would have called me the World Annihilation Dragon. Impossible. The seal has not been lifted. How could you appear in the outside world? Bing Hua Songxing's heart trembled. The old man said, Of course, I have to thank that civilization weapon, which once again destroyed part of the seal. I can more or less exert some of my strength. What you see is just a part of my incarnation. The seal was destroyed? Bing Hua Songxing's heart was beating wildly. So, the sinful lady was likely to be born earlier than expected? No. He had to inform Su Yu and the others as soon as possible. If he waited until the sinful lady was born before breaking into the ancient tomb, everything would be over. Swish. Without hesitation, Bing Hua Songxing turned and fled, not even caring about the inheritance of the ice and fire royal family. The black-robed old man put his hands behind his back and did not intend to chase after him. However, behind Bing Hua Songxing, in the shadow, a young man with extremely powerful cultivation walked out. His facial features were ordinary and somewhat similar to those of the human race. But there was also a pair of dragon horns on top of his head. There is another incarnation? Bing Hua Songxing said in surprise. What answered him was an indifferent punch from the young man. Bing Hua Songxing did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent. He exerted all his strength. Boundless ice and fire. Ice and fire converged between his palms, intertwining into a powerful force of annihilation. The two fists collided in the air. As a result, Bing Hua Sangxing opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of divine blood. His body was penetrated by the power of the fist. The body of a level 2 deity was shattered on the spot, leaving only his soul. His body was shattered by a single punch? Bing Hua Sangxing could not believe it. However, he reacted extremely quickly. The moment his soul left his body, he immediately fled through the secret chamber. However, he had only escaped a few steps when another terrible punch came from behind him. Bing Hua Sangxing's soul was shattered in an instant. With the pain of his soul being torn apart, Bing Hua Sangxing sent out the last soul message of his life with his last strand of will. Su Yu, be careful. Then, his soul was destroyed and he perished in the world. After the young man killed him, he walked up to the old man with no expression on his face. Strangely, he turned into a black hair and floated back to the old man's head. The young man who killed a level 2 deity with a punch was just the old man's incarnation. The incarnation of the incarnation. Many years have passed, and their descendants are getting worse with each generation. They are not even as good as a strand of hair of the original incarnation. The old man closed his eyes and shook his head. Swish. His figure disappeared on the spot, as if there was no mistake about the seal. The next moment, he appeared at the border of the Empire of Darkness. He grasped the air, and a fluorescent light flew into his palm. This thing was a message sent by Bing Hua Sangxing with the last of his soul power. In an instant it flew out of a radius of 10 billion miles. However, the old man caught up with it in the blink of an eye. After glancing at the fluorescent light, the old man did not extinguish it. Instead, he let go of his hand and let it fly towards Su Yu. His old eyes stared at the direction of the fluorescent light and murmured, "It turned out to be in that direction." A few days later, in the capital of the Taiqing Empire, in the face of a great disaster, there was a bustle that had never been seen before in the era of the divine warriors of heaven and earth. Creatures from all over the world gathered in the Taiqing Empire, and many strong men came to the capital. The news of Su Yu, the #1 person in the God realm, coming to the empire in person caused a stir in the capital, causing it to be overcrowded. The streets were already crowded with people, and when they walked, they were almost pushed by the crowd. The sky was also filled with martial artists floating in the air. They covered the sky and the sun, shrouding the earth in darkness. Those who didn't know better would think it was the middle of the night. The Taiqing Empire had mobilized all its forces, such as limiting the number of people entering the city, diverting the crowd, and making them line up in an orderly manner. However, their enthusiasm could not be stopped by a wall of the empire. There were several incidents of people breaking into the city gate. The guards guarding the gate were rushed into the sea of people in the city, and since then, they had never been able to squeeze back. All of this was caused by a piece of explosive news that almost drove them crazy. Su Yu had come in person. They were so enthusiastic just to see this unparalleled king, this legendary martial artist, with their own eyes. Even if they could see him in person, this trip would not be in vain. No one had expected such a fanatical scene. Huff huff. At the entrance of the competition venue, the Moonwatch sect master rushed in, panting. He was exhausted. Sect master, did you come back from a fight? At the entrance, Taiqing Miaoyu was chewing on an apple and said with a faint smile. The Moonwatch sect master looked unnatural. He looked back at the surging sea of people, and his heart was still fluttering with fear. It was crazy. They just wanted to see Su Yu. As the initiator who suggested Su Yu come in person, the Moonwatch sect master had never expected Su Yu to have such a high position in the hearts of the creatures from the God realm. On the rostrum, Taiqing Yunluan was frowning and smiling bitterly. The imperial city was out of control and was no longer under the control of the Taiqing Empire. She looked at Su Yu, who was resting leisurely with his eyes closed. She couldn't help but ask, "Senior Su, the duels are about to start. Could you please say a few words and ask everyone to make way for us?" At least let the participants come in first? She looked out of the entrance and saw a bunch of participants blocked outside. They were all squeezed so hard that their faces were red. They were stuck in the sea of people and were about to be turned into meat pies. However, there were too many people. They could only stare at the entrance and could not enter at all. Suyu opened his eyes and looked around at the empty arena. He said helplessly, "All right, don't push anymore." Unexpectedly, the crazily crowded crowd quietened down immediately. The participants finally squeezed in, panting. There were about 100 of them, and they were the strongest group of strong men in the current era. Most of them were powerful level 3 deities. However, even so, they were still out of breath from being squeezed. Taichin Yunluan looked at the sky and said, "The auspicious time has come. Everyone, take a break and get ready for the competition." Haha, how can I miss out on such a lively scene? An indifferent chuckle was heard. A series of screams could be heard. The crowd blocking the entrance was parted to form a path. Looking back, it was a group of mysterious and unfamiliar black-robed youth. They were led by an old man and slowly entered the arena. Wherever the old man passed, the people blocking his path would be pushed aside, no matter what cultivation they had. Such a domineering entrance had infuriated a group of people. However, the strange thing was that anyone who wanted revenge couldn't get close to them no matter what. Right at that moment, a soul fluorescent light floated towards Suyu. Suyu frowned and caught the soul fluorescent light in his palm. A cry at the soul level echoed in his ears. "Suyu, be careful." Suyu stood up abruptly, his gaze grave. Then, his chest started to throb. His expression changed slightly as he looked at the black-robed old man. His eyes narrowed. He was too sleepy last night and didn't write 2 chapters. Today, he would make up for it. Chapter 1560. Taichin Yunluan frowned and scolded softly, "Who are you? How dare you barge into the competition of the Taiqing Empire?" The old man chuckled. "The Taiqing Empire? The descendants of the Taiqing Emperor. Haha, each generation is worse than the last. Not even a level 1 deity has been born among his descendant. How dare you?" Taichin Yunluan's face turned cold as she slammed her palm on the table beside her. "Barging into the Taiqing Empire and humiliating our empire. How dare you? Men, chase them out," Taichin Yunluan ordered. The guards in the arena rushed over quickly, their blades sharp. "Hold on," Suyu said. Taichin Yunluan immediately signaled for the guards to be quiet and cast a puzzled look at Suyu. The old man and the group of mysterious youths he had brought with him were obviously not friendly. Sitting down slowly, Suyu sized up the old man and said, "The World Martial Arts Competition welcomes strong men from all over the world. Shouldn't you tell us where you are from?" The old man laughed. "I come from a hidden family, a descendant of the dragon race. These youths are my people. I heard that there are many heroes in the world, so we came to join in the fun and see how many strong men there are in the world today." Hidden family? Many of the creatures pondered. When the God Realm collided with the Lost Nation, there were indeed many God Realm families who hid in the vast Blackwood forest and never cared about the world. However, this was the first time they had heard of a descendant of the dragon race. Deep in Suyu's pupils, a pale color flickered as he glanced at the old man and the group of youths. Under the soul eyes, their souls were different and nothing unusual could be seen. However, Suyu's heart palpitated just now, and he was extremely vigilant. When the old man appeared, the fragment of the World Annihilation Dragon's chain of rules moved. This was no coincidence. What was more coincidental was that Binghua Songxing had sent a message with the soul fluorescence. There was only one sentence, a warning. The appearance of the soul fluorescence could only mean one thing: the destruction of the divine soul. If there was no accident, Binghua Songxing had perished, and her divine soul had perished from the world. In this world, there were only 2 people who could prevent Binghua Songxing's divine soul from escaping. One was Suyu, and the other was Yongyechuma. Yongyechuma might not even be able to protect himself, so there was only one person who could be killed. The mysterious old man in front. A descendant of the dragon race? Su Yu's eyes were filled with a deep light. He could vaguely confirm that this person had a great relationship with the World Annihilation Dragon. Thinking back to the past, the World Annihilation Dragon had once used a reverse scale to transform into a young man to hunt him down. Su Yu was even more certain now. However, compared to that young man, the old man in front of him was 100 times more terrifying. He was definitely not formed from a mere scale. What? You don't welcome us? Or could it be that all of you are just a motley crew? Do you think people like you are qualified to attack the ancient tomb? The old man looked around and sneered. These words were very successful in stirring up the emotions of the spectators and participants. Su Yu muttered to himself for a moment. If he didn't allow them to participate, he would be showing weakness, and this competition would lose its purpose of inspiring everyone's courage. If he agreed, then they had come with ill intentions. After thinking for a while, Su Yu slowly nodded. Of course you are welcome. Please. Hee hee, you know what's good for you. The old man chuckled as he walked to the rostrum and occupied a seat. That seat was originally reserved for Binghua Sangxing. Tai Qing Yunluan frowned. Who allowed you to ascend the platform? You are not qualified to sit on this seat. The old man said indifferently, to be precise, you are not qualified to sit on the same platform as me. Seeing that Tai Qing Yunluan was about to argue again, Su Yu secretly patted her arm, signaling her to be quiet. Tai Qing Yunluan glanced at Su Yu from the corner of her eyes full of anger. She didn't understand why Su Yu had tolerated this person time and time again. Was there a need to be afraid of a mere hidden family? The old man's presumptuous behavior had angered the crowd. How could he be so arrogant in front of Senior Su? Does he still have any respect for the Orthodox God realm? Senior Su is really too much. So what if he is a descendant of the Dragon Clan? Why is he so lenient to them? What's wrong with Senior Su? Why is he so accommodating? Puzzled questions and resentful complaints filled the hearts of the people. They didn't understand why someone as powerful as Su Yu would tolerate a small hidden family. They didn't know that if Su Yu didn't choose to tolerate, the consequences would be unpredictable. Let's begin, Su Yu said. Tai Qing Yunluan was indignant. She sneered. All right, why don't you show us what kind of good juniors your small hidden family has nurtured? Yunhui, you attack. Tai Qing Yunhui had experienced setbacks and had washed away her former cold arrogance. Her temperament was steadier now, and she immediately leaped onto the arena. She is the most outstanding junior among the younger generation of the Tai Qing Empire. Let her have a taste of your brilliant moves. The old man didn't choose seriously, but pointed at a young man who was the weakest among them. He said, You go. If the outcome is not decided within 10 moves, you don't have to come back. The young man in black cupped his fists and nodded. He leaped onto the arena and stared at Tai Qing Yunhui like a cold cheetah. Decide the outcome within 10 moves? The crowd couldn't help but laugh in anger. Who was Tai Qing Yunhui? One of the 3 most outstanding heroes of the current generation. Since the demise of Nitian Sha, she had become the leader of the 3 heroes. Judging from the cultivation of the young man in black, he should be a level 3 deity. It was wishful thinking to want to decide the outcome within 10 moves. How arrogant! Fairy Yunhui, send him off the arena within 10 moves. That's right, let that bunch of ignorant mountain boors witness the glory of our god realm. Tai Qing Yunhui was completely focused on attacking. Her first move was the Yunyang Tai Chi wings. Her figure was fleeting, and she appeared behind the young man in black like a ghost. She attacked with the force of a thunderbolt. The young man in black seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. Without hesitation, he slapped the back of his hand. Tai Qing Yunhui's attack failed. She immediately displayed the Yunyang Tai Chi wings and changed the angle of her attack. Within a few breaths, she changed several times. Her afterimages overlapped with each other, and it was amazing. Tai Qing Yunluan's beautiful eyes revealed a smile of approval. After experiencing setbacks, she has settled down a lot in the past 2 months. Her Yunyang Tai Chi wings are very adept, and she is nearing completion. But Su Yu's expression was slightly grave. He said, "This is already the 9th round, isn't it? Let's see if she can survive the last round." Survive? Tai Qing Yunluan sighed. Elder Su, you have underestimated Yun Hui. Looking at the current situation, she still has the upper hand. Su Yu shook his head. The opponent has not even shifted his feet. Yun Hui has attacked 9 times in a row, but she has not even touched his sleeves. How can she have the upper hand? Just as Su Yu finished speaking, the situation in the arena changed in an instant. "It's time to end this," the young man in black muttered to himself during the 10th round. It was also at this moment that Tai Qing Yun Hui teleported to the center of his back. She aimed at his vital spot and gave him a nimble attack. But suddenly, the young man in black in front of her disappeared. He had disappeared. He had disappeared even faster than her. This was enough to show that the opponent had a movement technique that was faster than her. Not good. Tai Qing Yun Hui's heart thumped. She had just thought of this when she felt a sharp pain on her back. With danger approaching, Tai Qing Yun Hui shot out a mass of yin and yang energy from her back, pushing her body away at the critical moment. She turned her head to look. Her pupils shrank as she realized that it was the man in black. He had appeared behind her with a trajectory that even she could not capture. Swish, the figure of the young man in black disappeared again. Before Tai Qing Yun Hui could react, her back was bombarded by a powerful force. Tai Qing Yun Hui activated her life-saving divine technique, using the yin and yang energy to protect her body, neutralizing 99% of the force. But the remaining small part of the force still caused her to spit out blood. She was sent flying into the arena and fainted on the spot. The audience was dead silent. A breath ago, Tai Qing Yun Hui had suppressed the opponent to the point that he could not fight back. A breath later, she was killed by the thunder, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Moreover, it was exactly 10 rounds. To be precise, it was 1 round. She had allowed her opponent 9 rounds. She had only used 1 round. Looking at the unconscious Tai Qing Yun Hui, whose chest was stained with blood, the audience could not believe that she was the leader of the 3 heroes of the younger generation. The old man chuckled. 10 rounds, and the winner has been decided. Tai Qing Yunluan was shocked. She stared at the young man in black, her face full of fear. What a great movement technique! Peacock King, you go! Swish, a middle-aged woman in colorful clothes leaped out from the contestants of the Tai Qing Empire. His appearance was nothing special, and he did not stand out in the crowd. But as soon as she appeared, it immediately caused excited cheers. It's her! The #1 king of the Tai Qing Empire, Peacock King. Didn't the rumor say that she had already passed away? She's actually still in the mortal world. It's actually her. The Peacock King, who is known as the best movement technique among the 3rd heaven deities. I heard that she is Tai Qing Yun Hui's teacher. Tai Qing Yun Hui's movement technique was personally taught by this teacher. There's going to be a good show. Tai Qing Yunluan stared at the old man. She is considered a 3rd heaven expert of the older generation. Your junior might not be enough. Let's change. But the old man still laughed. No need to change. It's still 10 rounds. Arrogant. The audience was furious. The Peacock King was a famous expert of the older generation. He was not like the younger generation like Tai Qing Yun Hui. His strength was many times higher. Fine, you asked for it. Tai Qing Yunluan's eyes flashed. Peacock King, since the opponent is so confident, you don't have to hold back. The Peacock King nodded expressionlessly. I know. After he finished speaking, he turned into a colorful shadow. In an instant, he flew around the arena. The entire arena was covered by colorful shadows. It was impossible to see where the Peacock King was. Tai Qin Yunluan sneered and stared at the old man. Then, he looked at the youth in black with pity. It's time to change to the next one. But the corner of the old man's mouth curled up into a mocking smile. The youth in black did not give way. Instead, he raised his head and stared at the colorful shadows in the sky. His figure disappeared in an instant. In the next moment, the dense, colorful shadows were suddenly broken. The Peacock King's arms were bleeding profusely. He retreated. His calm face was replaced by shock. You didn't use movement technique. You, the youth in black, shook off the remaining divine blood on his claws. He said coldly, "Can't even withstand a single blow." Before his words reached the ears of the Peacock King, she suffered another untraceable attack. Poof, her body, along with her soul, was suddenly destroyed. Staring blankly at the bloody rain and the scattering soul fluorescence, everyone was stunned. 2 moves. The Peacock King died just like that?